Et d'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélia. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Juan.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Moral.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves. Madame le député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ghost. Monsieur le député Farnham. Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles. Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Faltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet.
Présente.
Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Ward. Sorry.
Present. Present. Present.
We can mark Deputy Ward here 3 times, then I think. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yes.
I wasn't sure whether you'd heard. Forgive me.
Madame le député Wilson. Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussis au bien notre soulagement du peuple, qu'il t'a plu de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Madame le Député Alves.
Therefore,
Monsieur le Député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Farnham.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Joseph. Madame le Député Porre.
therefore,
Madame le Député Jeune.
therefore,
Madame le Député Wilson.
Sir, if I may, Deputy Wilson had to fly out for an emergency family situation to Liverpool last night, and she asks to be excused on this occasion.
members agree? Yes, excuse.
Thank you.
We didn't, I think, call Deputy Alex Curtis because although he was here, his name passed him by.
Okay. Deputy Curtis.
Présent.
Welcome to the present moment. I'm sure members will join me in welcoming His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor of the Chamber this morning. There are matters tabled under B and C. Under D, the following items will be presented or laid. French national identity cards as valid travel documentations for French citizens, P.5 Amendment, lodged by Deputy Ozef. Draft Children and Young People Police Detention Jersey Amendment, lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, that's P40. Draft Financial Services Jersey Amendment Law, P41, lodged by the Minister for External Relations. Draft Bank Recovery and Resolution Jersey Amendment Law, lodged by the same Minister, P42. Draft Criminal Justice Young Offenders Jersey Amendment Law, lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, P43. There are, under E, in accordance with Standing Order 34.1, the following has been withdrawn: Draft Jersey Gas Company Amendment Law, which had been lodged by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and that was P22. There is nothing under F, G, H, I. Answers have been tabled to various questions, and those are available to members. And we come now to oral questions. And the first question will be asked by Deputy Andrews of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy.
In light of the Minister's comments regarding means testing by social housing providers made during the debate on the amendment to P29/2025, will the Minister advise whether, in her assessment, a lack of such means testing would negatively impact on delivering of the proposition?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So during my speech in the debate on P29, I referred to Andium and other social housing providers undertaking means testing and not a complete absence of means testing. Means testing is already undertaken when an individual or family is admitted on the housing gateway list. Tenants who receive income support are also means tested. There is therefore no lack of means testing that would negatively impact on delivery of the proposition. I believe that as part of reviewing options for social housing policies going forward, it would be inefficient and costly for social housing providers to assume responsibility for means testing when it is already undertaken by government departments. My principal concern in my speech was to emphasise the importance of preserving the business models of Andium and the other social housing providers to ensure they can continue to meet decent home standards and deliver ongoing maintenance, and in the case of Andium, their capital development and building programme.
A supplemental question?
Yes, please, sir. The proposer, Deputy Kovacs, alluded to members of our society living in relative poverty, and that's really what she wanted to see be addressed. And I want to know whether the Treasury Minister is of the view that this is something that can be addressed with her and her officers once they look at this issue in greater detail. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I think we're in danger of preempting a debate that will happen early next year. The outcome of the P29 debate was that the Housing Minister is going to do some work and bring forward some options, and I think it's premature to discuss aspects until he's done that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Would the Treasury Minister, who has, of course, been Social Security Minister and got wide experience, would she agree with me and the view that fundamentally the issue which is the Deputy is asking and the issues in that debate fundamentally need the whole of the government, the whole of the Assembly to focus on the supply side of houses? If we had more of them, then people would not be in such poverty. And would she not say that that's where the focus of her attention and officers might better be spent than creating another means-tested system?
Sir, I thank the Deputy for his question. I think we're all agreed that supply is an issue and we do need to focus on more supply of homes, whether in the public or the private sector. And we need to consider the affordability of those homes. And that is exactly why I think we need to have the social housing providers focusing on that and not on means testing. But that is my view, and this is a debate for another day. Thanks.
Supplemental question, Deputy. Supplemental question, Deputy.
I thank the Minister for her reply.
Final supplementary then, Deputy Andrews. Very well, we come to question 2. The Deputy Miles will ask for the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Given the tender document for the lease of Le Creux Pavilion stated that presentations to a panel would begin during the week commencing the 21st of April 2025, but that no further information has been given in response to expressions of interest, will the Minister explain why there has been a delay and set out the timetable for presentations to take place?
Thank you, Sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. I'm pleased to say that there's been a positive response for expressions of interest, with a significant number of detailed submissions being received. This excellent response has meant that it's taken much longer than anticipated to review the submissions so that we can come up with a shortlist and a timetable for presentations to a panel can be set. It's important that the review process is conducted thoroughly, and I equally appreciate the need for it to be undertaken in a timely way so we can bring Le Creux back into full use as soon as possible. It is anticipated that once the review of the submissions is complete, presentations to a panel will be scheduled later this month. Parties have been informed, and I've also asked that parish representatives are briefed before a final decision is confirmed and announced. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer. That's a very promising answer. My question is, when a facility like Le Creux becomes vacant, and in this case it was well known that the tenant was going to give up the lease, why does it take over a year to put out an expressions of interest? Does the Minister have any processes or procedures in place to encourage meanwhile use?
The problem with Le Creux, sir, we thought we were going to have to use it for meanwhile use, sir, for tenants of another facility that the government owns, that we were told was going to cost £700,000 to make it usable. Thankfully, we found an alternative solution, and those tenants can stay in place. But we kept Le Creux available as a potential for those tenants that we had somewhere else. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Renner.
Thank you, sir. The delay has obviously caused some problems for people who were perhaps building businesses models around the potential use of that site. Does the Minister have any message to give to the people who have put in applications about the delay?
Well, I haven't seen any of the applications, but I'm told that some of them are incredibly extensive and detailed, and that is what has taken the time, sir. So whether it's a charity, whether it's a community group, whether it's a business, we have to take consideration. We want Le Creux to be used as widely for the community and potentially sport as possible, sir, and that's our hope. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renner.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his response. Can he shed any light on the criteria that the panel will be using to judge the potential, to judge the final appointment?
So, as I've said, it would need to serve the community and or sport, or a combination of both. That's our priority for Le Creux. It's not seen as a facility for a business to run per se, but it's seen primarily for the community and for sport. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. As I said, the site at Le Creux has been empty for well over a year. Can the Minister tell us what maintenance has been done to the building and the grounds, and whether the facility will be restored to any extent at all before the new tenants arrive?
Thank you, sir. Routine checks, etc., have continued to be made. Some maintenance has taken place, and clearly we will need to make sure that the premises are fit before any new tenant takes place. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 3 that Deputy Wilson will ask for the Minister for Sustainable and Economic Development. Deputy Wilson.
Deputy Wilson is out. It's on defo, sir.
She's defo, of course, yes.
Excuse me.
Yes, I beg your pardon. I thought she was online and I misremembered. Apologies. Very well. Number 3 falls away. We come to question 4. The Deputy Gardener will ask for the Minister for Health and Social Services.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether the government has implemented or intends to implement a compensation scheme for healthcare workers who have been left with serious health issues or life-changing disabilities as a result of contracting COVID-19 in the course of their employment?
Minister.
Sir, the government hasn't and doesn't plan to implement a specific compensation scheme for healthcare workers who've been adversely affected by COVID-19 in the course of their employment. Having said that, Jersey does have a vaccine damage payment scheme, which is operated by the NHS Business Service Authority. This provides a one-off tax-free payment for individuals who, based on medical evidence, are severely disabled as a direct result of receiving a vaccination. This would include COVID vaccinations. So, in addition, staff members who are permanently incapacitated and unable to work due to illness of this or any other sort can apply for ill health retirement through the government's pension fund and can also seek support through occupational health services. I hope that answer is helpful.
Thank you very much, Minister. Supplemental question, Deputy Gardener.
Thank you, sir. And it is concerning. I would like to check with the Minister, does the government acknowledge any responsibility to support healthcare workers whose health have been permanently affected as a result of their service during the COVID-19 crisis?
It acknowledges responsibility, sir, to the extent that it is covered by the scheme that has been adopted from the UK, sir.
Very well, we come to question 5 that Deputy Alex Curtis will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. In relation to the proposed redevelopment of Fort Regent, will the Minister advise whether his department or the States of Jersey Development Company, as a delivery partner, will seek pre-application advice for any scheme, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the States of Jersey Development Company are already in discussions with officers in the planning department, including those that deal with heritage, and will continue to do so throughout the planning process. It is proposed that if Fort Regent is redeveloped, this will be split into several applications, the first of which will be repairs required to the roof and facades, and pre-application advice has been requested and received for this first application. It is intended to request further pre-application advice once the results of the recent public consultation survey are known and the intended uses to the various areas are established. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain a little further how he and the States of Jersey Development Company will use the feedback from pre-application advice? Will he use that to, in essence, try to assure the maximum success of delivery of a project by making sure it is compliant and doesn't try to stretch policies too far?
So the whole reason that we're asking for pre-application advice, sir, is so that we can follow the advice that we're given and not do something totally different. So we're looking to try and be as efficient as we can and therefore working with partners. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 6 that Deputy Coles will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And can I raise the defo on Deputy Porre first, please?
Yes, Deputy Porre, the defo is raised on Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. Further to the reduction in services by Blue Island Airlines resulting in flight disruption and cancellations, will the Minister state when he first became aware of the situation, advise what impact this will have on islanders travelling to the UK for medical treatment, and explain what actions, if any, are being taken to mitigate any impact?
Sir, the Health and Care Travel Team is in daily contact with the staff of Blue Islands to coordinate arrangements for patient flights. On average, the service facilitates approximately 15 return flights for patients each day, the majority going to Southampton. On the evidence presented, I'm comfortable that Blue Islands fully understand the essential nature of these medical appointments, and it's clear from their recent actions that they're prioritising Jersey patients to make sure they're transferred as planned. In the event that flights are cancelled or disrupted, Blue Islands contact both affected patients and the HCJ travel team as soon as they can to make alternative arrangements. Where possible, they provide notice of any changes to the flight schedule, and that's often several days in advance. This allows the HCJ travel team to rebook patients onto alternative flights or flights on different days, minimising disruption to the greatest extent possible, sir.
Much. A supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. What discussions, if any, have taken place between the Minister and the Economic Development Minister and Treasury Minister to coordinate government's engagement with Blue Islands about this, and if none, why not?
I know that none have taken place. I have to be perfectly honest about that, because to the extent that the information has been relayed to me, the best arrangements that can be made are being made. I would have thought, short of hiring planes individually, there's little else we can do, given that we are on an island in the middle of the Channel, sir.
Well, we come to question 7. That Deputy Renouf will ask the Minister for External Relations. Deputy.
Further to written question 228/2025, will the Minister provide details of the organisational restructure of Ports of Jersey that led to Jersey Airport being placed under special attention by the Office of the Director of Civil Aviation, and advise what measures are being taken to address the situation?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Office of the Director of Civil Aviation operates an escalation procedure that mirrors that used by the UK Civil Aviation Authority. Special attention status is level 1, the lowest level of an escalation procedure, and is therefore a matter for the DCA and the airport. As I have stated in written question 228, I've been provided a high-level brief as is appropriate at level 1. This did not provide detail on the organisational restructure. However, it highlighted that the restructure had resulted in the need for further recruitment as well as training and development among the management team. The DCA and Ports of Jersey are now working to address the issues raised by the DCA.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, sir. The Minister's adopting a kind of nothing to see here approach, but I've been told that the airport has failed 2 security checks, that the control tower is not staffed with appropriately qualified personnel, and that a new recruit meant to address the shortage of qualified staff in the control tower has since left. Can the Minister confirm this is the case, and what actions has he taken to ensure that ports are on top of what is going on?
So the action that's being taken is the action that I've described both in the written answer to the written question and the oral question, that the Office of the Director of Civil Aviation, post the restructure, has put the airport under level 1 escalation procedure, which is around special attention. And I've just been clear in my answer to members that that has required and will require special additional training. I understand from the ports that they've also recruited consultants, and there will be a further audit undertaken by the DCA later this month, and they will revert back to me. Level 1 does not require and is not, as some have suggested, that the airport is not under level 1, subject to sanction or suspension of operations.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise how many meetings he had with the ports to stay on top of the situation, and what questions he asked the senior officials?
So normally the level 1 escalation wouldn't require a briefing to the Minister. It arises out of ports restructure. When I was made aware of it in February, I asked for a meeting not only with the DCA, which I had, I also asked for a joint meeting with Ports of Jersey. Both agreed to work on the issues that the DCA or the reasons that the DCA had issued the level 1 escalation process, and they continue to do so. As I say, in that meeting, both ports and the DCA agreed that they would work to ensure that there was the correct training in place, and ports confirmed that they had used consultants to fill in any gaps that the DCA had highlighted, and there will, as I say, be a further review later this month, and they will report back to me and to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, because we remind ourselves that the DCA sits under my department. The operation of the port sits under the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development.
Supplemental question, Deputy Guardian.
Thank you. And how long does the Minister expect the airport to stay on in special attention category?
That I'm not, of course, able to answer, because that will be determined by the result of the review later this month that the DCA will undertake.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Renniff gave a fairly specific list of questions he wished confirmation from the Minister for. Does the Minister recognise the instances given by Deputy Renniff, and could he be firmer and clearer in his response on that? It wasn't that clear to me first time.
I think, as I said, I don't have those details and not been provided with those details. I would expect that the DCA would revert to me if he had concerns around the ongoing mitigations and improvements that he had agreed with ports to be put in place. He has not yet done that, but he will be undertaking, as I said, a further review later this month, and will refer or reference back to me and the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development once that review has been undertaken.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Very briefly. So will the Minister, having had this conversation in the States now, seek clarification on those specific points, so that if that is the case, he will know the answer next time, understanding he's not been briefed quite yet? Will he undertake to seek those specifics?
Well, I imagine, so now that I have had these questionings in the States, that will be part of the questions that I ask the DCA when he reverts to me with the result of his review or audit, as members would expect.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. Given that the airport was placed into special attention as a result of their own organisational structure, one could say that this situation is self-inflicted. Therefore, does the Minister have complete confidence in the Chief Executive of Ports of Jersey?
So I'm not sure that it's my place to say whether I have complete confidence in the Chief Executive of the Ports of Jersey or not. Within my remit falls the Office of the Director of Civil Aviation. As I've just said to members, I've had these conversations with the Director of Civil Aviation. Inevitably, during reorganisation, as I understand it, and again, I'm not an expert on civil aviation, on any major reorganisation, then I understand that an escalation of special attention would be put in place. What's important, and what was important for me when I was informed of that, and in my meeting as with the Minister of Sustainable Economic Development, was that there was no risk to security, and that Ports of Jersey were taking the action that the Director of Civil Aviation, which operates in line with international standards, asks them to take, and that he was confident that any perceived processes which weren't working effectively were being addressed. They both gave me that confidence, but as we all know, the proof will be in the eating of the pudding, and we will only know that once the Director of Civil Aviation has done his further review later this month.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, I thank the Minister for his answer. Will the Minister publish any correspondence between Ports of Jersey and the DCA relating to these issues between himself and Ports?
I'm not sure that that would be a normal process, nor am I sure that that would happen elsewhere, but it's certainly something I could consider.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. On a similar train of thought, the Minister has referred to a review, a report, an audit that's going to happen in due course. Will that report also be published? And if not, why not?
So as I've just said to Deputy Miles, I'm not aware that that is the normal procedure, but what I will certainly undertake to do is to ensure that members are informed and whether it's the actual report or a form of a report or a briefing to the public is already provided, because it seems to me that the number of questions and the interest in this assembly means that we need to ensure that islanders continue to have confidence in the security operations of the airport. And one of the ways that we can do that is by putting information into the public domain.
Supplemental question, Deputy. I have Deputy Ozef, Stadier and Howell asking questions. Next, no further questions. Deputy Ozef.
So, the Minister answered a series of questions in what, in hindsight, may look like a script from a carry-on movie, and I make no joke about this, or a Yes Prime Minister with the Department of Regulation, the Administrative Affairs, review external consultants. With the Chief Executive of the States of Jersey and the President of the new Chamber of Commerce speaking about the importance of ALOs and cutting red tape, does he not think that actually it would be good for him to spend some time looking at the structures that we've created, because it sounds as though this script could be a script for the Department of Administrative Affairs, when actually we should be having tight, small, efficient, efficacious ways of dealing with things, not the department that passes things to other people and creating lots of things where people's safety is concerned. Is it not time for a proper review, like the Chief Executive says?
It is within the ambit, in my view.
So funnily enough, I've just started re-watching the series Yes Minister, and last night I got to the where the Minister was made the Prime Minister, and I'm always struck by, sadly, in certain situations, how lifelike it actually is, and I'm sure members of the public would be surprised to hear me saying that. The Department for External Relations has responsibility for the Office of the Director of Civil Aviation, which mirrors UK Civil Aviation Authority. That has to be separate from the operation of the airport and the harbours themselves. Does it fit well with the Minister for External Relations? I don't believe it does. I think it's almost an accident of history that it sits here. Should we in Jersey be looking at methodologies which in this instance puts at supreme safety of islanders and air transport? Yes, we should. But should we find a way of going back to what we always used to do incredibly well in Jersey, which is sitting round a table, sorting problems out without a big bureaucratic infrastructure? Then he's absolutely right, we should. Whilst I have to stand up and support the work of the DCA, and they have to make sure that islanders' safety is paramount and security is paramount, we also have to have an economic, sustainable airport and harbours system. And that does mean that we need to work together, and we've got to get away from, as he highlighted, big bureaucracy that hinder us from doing our everyday work and that don't have islanders at the heart of their operations.
Supplemental question, Deputy Ozef.
I'm grateful, sir, for you allowing that question, because in the Minister's answer, he is really pushing, I think, and I hope that I have said something uncomfortably true. And would he, in conclusion, rather than having more, very sadly, Yes Prime Minister episodes, it playing out in this assembly this morning, which is dealing with the most important issue, as he says, safety, would he actually spend some of his week or some of his weeks between now and the next election using his skills of government to and I'm not suggesting a MAGA chainsaw, but dealing with the structures that we've put in place that we need to untangle in order to get better value for taxpayers and a safer island? Just a yes or no would be fine, and I'd happily meet him next week.
Minister.
Well, that is partly what I'm doing in the other area of my portfolio around financial services. He's absolutely right. It needs to be done. And it is also something that I think the Chief Minister is absolutely committed to. I'm just thinking out loud about my diary, but of course I'll be happy to meet him next week to discuss it further.
Deputy Tadier. Deputy Tadier?
Yes, I'm here, so sorry for the delay. So the question for me really is why it has taken so long for the government to acknowledge that there has been an issue at Jersey Airport being placed under special measures. I can see that there was a Freedom of Information request submitted back in February asking whether the airport had been put into special measures, and the response was that it was exempt, and the government didn't give an answer. I also know that others had raised this with the Minister for Economic Development as far back as February. Was the Minister for External Relations going to make a statement and tell at least states members of the condition of the airport, were it not for this oral question and written question from a states member?
Minister.
So I was made aware of the special attention, and that's just, we do have to get the terminology correct, in February, probably around the time, I guess, but I don't have the dates in front of me, just from Deputy Tadier's mention of the Freedom of Information request at about that time. As I am aware, that was the same time that the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development was made aware. And at that point, we, of course, undertook to brief the Deputy and his panel on what we knew. We offered for the Director of Civil Aviation to meet with the panel to brief them about concerns which I understand have been raised with them. And I also understand that the Ports of Jersey, the offer was made that they would brief the panel as well, which I think has yet to take place, but is in the diary. These issues are always difficult. And as I said in earlier question, if I had thought that the DCA felt that they were not getting traction with the Ports of Jersey and the Ports of Jersey weren't taking the necessary action, then of course I would have had to make more public statements. But my understanding at that time, from meetings with both of them in the same room, that the actions that the Director of Civil Aviation were taking, that Ports of Jersey were taking, were those which the Director of Civil Aviation thought they should take to deal with the issues which caused the airport to be placed under special attention.
Supplemental question, Deputy Taddy?
I do have one, sir. Yes. Would the Minister undertake to give a full timeline to members and to publish it about who knew what when, and actually when this started to become a problem? Because certainly as a panel, we were made aware of an issue at the very beginning of February when we raised it with the Minister for Economic Development. That means he knew at least about it then. I'd be very surprised if this wasn't an ongoing issue before that. So for public transparency, would he speak to his ministerial colleagues and publish that timeline and circulate it at least with states members, if not with the public, so we know exactly what this problem is, how long it's been going on for, and if in fact we would have found out about it, and what can be put in the public domain, sir?
Well, sir, as I understand it, the DCA, I'm just trying to get the deal with those timelines now. On the 10th of December, the DCA notified the accountable manager that the Ports of Jersey have been placed under on special attention. That's stage one of escalation, and requested various things, and those things were forthcoming. And I have that from a briefing that was provided to myself on the 7th of February. I became aware of it in early February, and they, as far as I'm aware, are the timelines. I cannot speak for others. If I'm incorrect with those timelines, which I'll go back to the department and check, if I'm incorrect, then of course I will notify members accordingly.
Very much. Deputy Hull. Deputy Hull?
Please may I raise the defo on Deputy Jeune?
Yes, the defo is raised in Deputy Jeune. I assume that meant you didn't want to ask a question. But final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. It looks like this organisational restructure from Ports of Jersey isn't going to be winning any awards, and it was put in place and known about back in February. The government believes in openness and transparency. There have been 3 opportunities to be open and transparent. First, when the problems arose, second, with my written question, and third, with this oral question. All 3 opportunities, it seems to me, have been missed. Will he therefore undertake to provide a full account of what has gone wrong at the airport and what is being done to correct the situation? Because at the moment it does look like I'm a bit more clued up than he is.
So, of course, government can never win when it comes to talking about openness and transparency. I am the Minister with responsibility for the Office of the Director of Civil Aviation, and within the terms of that question, of course, there were other responsibilities that he wants me to either opine upon or provide information for. As I've said in answer to other questions, of course I'm prepared to go back. The fact that members have asked so many questions means that we do need to ensure that islanders are ultimately confident in the operation and the security at the airport, and not just myself and the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development in the meetings and the undertakings that we've had both from the DCA and the Ports of Jersey. So I do think, as I said in answer to Deputy Stevenson, that once the review has been undertaken later this month, that is an opportunity for us to put further or fuller, if we're provided with it, information into the public domain. Thank you.
Minister, we come to question 8. The Deputy IA will ask for the Minister for Sustainable and Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Following the consultation on proposed amendments to the Licensing Jersey Law 1974, will the Minister advise whether he intends to set up a standalone regulatory authority for the distribution of licences or give this responsibility to the Jersey Gambling Commission? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the island's gambling and alcohol licensing laws are to be kept separate in any changes to liquor licensing. However, the recent public consultation does note the synergy in having a shared regulator for both laws. At this stage, it has not yet been determined finally whether this will be via a renamed and expanded gambling commission or in the form of a new body. And just for clarification, a new body that undertakes both functions.
Yes, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. If it is the intention for the ministers to set up a new regulatory authority, is it the minister's intention for the licensing authority to take on the responsibilities of the Gambling Commission in the future to avoid unnecessary costs? Thank you, sir.
As I understand the question, then the answer would be yes. My intention is that there is one authority and that it would undertake both the alcohol licensing and the Gambling Commission's functions. But obviously those functions will be determined by 2 separate laws. The laws will remain separate, but one authority can undertake both. This is part of that idea that we want to reduce, as previous questions and answers have suggested. We don't want to create more arm's length bodies, and I think the synergies between these 2 are quite strong.
We come to question 9. The Deputy Moore will ask the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what communication, if any, she has had with Blue Islands regarding their performance under the loan agreement that was reached during COVID? And if no communication has been had, does she plan to approach them?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, since the loan was granted, a representative from Treasury and the CEO of Ports of Jersey have attended all Blue Islands board meetings as observers. This observer status provides access to all board papers and reports enabling close monitoring of the airline's performance against the base case model and its broader commercial activity. The Treasury and Investment Management team is responsible for ongoing oversight of the loan agreement. While I have not personally attended meetings with Blue Islands, I am kept informed through regular updates from the Treasury representative. As Minister, I must emphasise that the loan issued to Blue Islands is commercially sensitive. Any discussions held with the airline in relation to this loan are subject to that same commercial sensitivity. While we are not in a position to discuss the specifics of the loan publicly, I would like to reassure members and the public that we are committed to and undertaking appropriate oversight. We will be happy to share further information with the relevant scrutiny panel shortly. As Minister for Treasury and Resources, my primary interest in this matter is to ensure that the loan extended to Blue Islands during the COVID pandemic is repaid in full. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister consider that the performance is acceptable under the terms of the agreement?
So yes, in light of the discussions we have had with Blue Islands over that time, yes it is. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. Blue Islands seems to be struggling a bit at the moment with running a service. Is the Minister concerned that the loan might become a bad loan?
So, as I said, matters relating to loan are commercially sensitive and I'm not prepared to discuss that in public. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir. Would the Minister consider giving further loans or further grants to Blue Islands in order to sustain the service in the future?
So that depends very much on circumstances. I don't believe we've been approached for further loans or grants. Thank you.
Deputy Tadier.
So stop me if this is too far from the original question, but will the Minister clarify whether there would be any public interest to avoid these kind of situations in the future as to whether airlines that operate to and from Jersey which receive a government grant...
I think I can stop you, and this relates specifically to communications with Blue Island, Deputy, and I don't think we can extend beyond that.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Conatarbus and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister confirm that Blue Island are bringing in chartered aircraft to cover their own aircraft, which have gone tech, for want of a better word, to satisfy the need for the public transport obligations as in the original agreement?
So that doesn't relate to the matter of the loan, and I believe the actual operations sit with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development and isn't within my remit. Thank you.
No. There's no supplemental question to that, I don't think.
No, sir.
Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Despite the Minister's suggestion that it is not possible to discuss the requirements of the loan, it was reported in the media in October of last year, sir, that 1/5 of the loan, only 1/5, has been repaid to date, and the loan repayment period has been extended to 2028. Could the Minister therefore confirm whether any further repayments have been made and whether she is confident that they will continue to be made going forward?
Sir, I can only repeat it's a matter of commercial sensitivity, and I'm not going to discuss that here. I'll provide a briefing to the scrutiny panel in due course. Thank you.
Very well. We come to question 10 that Deputy Mezek will ask of the President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the President advise what experience, if any, scrutiny panels have had of artificial intelligence being used by contributors to their reviews, and what consideration, if any, is being given to how AI-generated submissions can be identified and assessed?
Deputy, yes.
So, thank you, Deputy, for this question. I'm mindful that the use of AI in research and the formulation of written materials, including submissions, is not inherently negatively, and the range of uses to which it can be put is extremely wide. Scrutiny members and our officers are extremely mindful of the importance of establishing and understanding the context and origin of any evidence or submission that is received. Indeed, any submission received anonymously, for example, will be inadmissible. The weighting or credibility given to any submission is determined by several factors, which might include how well source material is referenced within it. We might ensure that it's not a bot, it's not automatic submission. We need to ensure that a real person, the person made the submission and expressed views. In respect to the second part of the question, as part of work of the department in this area, the state's current business plan, R45, contains an objective which reads, to continue investigating and implementing opportunities to integrate advances in technology and software, including artificial intelligence, into the work of the department. Specific to the scrutiny, the team of officers supporting us has established a working group to explore developments in AI and technology in parliamentary committee settings and to learn how such developments are being approached in other jurisdictions. Learning from this group will give us advice, and I ask also follow the question from the deputy to add the working with submissions and influence of AI to our next scrutiny liaison committee meeting, which will take place next week.
Much supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I thank the President for that answer. Part of my question was about what experience, if any, scrutiny panels had had of AI being used by contributors to their reviews. And the President is obviously right to say that AI can be a very useful tool. I'm aware of at least one instance that I could identify of a submission that looked to be almost wholly written by AI and contained numerous points of misinformation in them. Could I ask the President if she could confirm if this is something panels have reported experience of, or if it's any more widespread than at least I've been able to identify?
Thank you. First of all, there was one particular submission when the deputy submitted the question. I definitely checked with all chairs and with officers, and it was one particular submission that raised concern, saying this, that when we look through this particular submission, we can discuss the quality of the submission and maybe some contradictions, but this, if we are talking about the same submission, I'm happy to discuss with the deputy. There are 4 members of the particular organization signed the submission, so it's official submission. Regarding the misunderstanding or misconceptions, I believe if it's factually incorrect, 2 is 2, 5 is 5, which is facts and numbers, I would be welcoming if somebody found the factual mistakes to raise it with the scrutiny. Saying this, we always receive submissions from the members of the public that based on article from the newspaper, from the book, and from the internet, and their own views and their own interpretations. And it's very important that we look at all various interpretations and views from the public.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Will the President agree that if used correctly, AI can be a vital tool in developing work and conducting research, and in fact is vital in helping islanders to enhance their productivity, which is of course a matter that I believe forms part of the common strategic priorities of this government?
I believe that we all are learning how to work with AI. And in my opinion, going forward, the speed and the depth of research possible with AI gives almost equal research capabilities, for example, to scrutiny compared to the government, with no extra cost, which can only be good for democracy. And I believe that we all need to work together to understand how we're managing new technology coming into our life, which we must balance the strong human oversight and possible risks of bias and misconceptions that can come from AI. But this is why it's important, strong human oversight.
Supplemental question. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the President of the panel, does the does she support the creation of a register of lobbyists which may include guidance on the use of AI?
I think that first of all, thank you for the question, because the work with lobby groups has been raised at the Scrutiny Liaison Committee, and it's another theme that Scrutiny Liaison Committee looking into that. We also need to define, I think all parliaments are looking how to work, but at the end of the day, we work with individual parishioners and we work with all groups, and you need to make sure that we are engaging with a variety of public views.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I noted that the President of the committee earlier referred to an official submission. Does she think that a register of lobbyists would help us define what we mean by official in those terms? Because there are different levels, if you like, of organisation of groups that lobby our scrutiny and indeed all parts of government, to be quite frank. Thank you, sir.
I think it's really important to, thank you for the question. I think it is important to understand what is a lobby group, and we all work with lobby group. And we need to understand, for example, if Chamber of Commerce can consider lobby group, or the union consider lobby group. So from both ways we have lobby and we work with it. This is as these groups are presenting views of specific groups of the members of the public, and we have a variety of them.
Deputy Moreau.
Thank you, sir. Continuing from Deputy Mezek's question about the potential misinformation, and so Deputy Mezek in his question said that one of the responses seemed to contain misinformation. Now, whether it's from a machine learning tool or whether it's by a human being, would the Scrutiny Liaison Committee and Scrutiny panels seek to call out misinformation where it is stated in a response to a review?
Thank you. I think it's important that the scrutiny work together with the government, because sometimes what we consider as misinformation or different interpretation. If we are thinking about the law, the same law can be interpreted by different lawyers in different way. So the members of the public, what was presented to them, can be interpreting things in different ways. If the ministers consider there is specific misinformation was put towards the scrutiny, it's important to raise it with the scrutiny, and we will look into this, if it's this misinformation or interpretation. Another thing, when scrutiny put in the reports, the first thing that scrutiny does before any report publication, it's a fact check with the government. And it's, I think, another stop to ensure that misinformation is not cascaded to the public. The fact check from the government coming back to the scrutiny saying these facts are wrong, and we can talk about the facts.
Supplemental question, Deputy Moreau.
Thank you, sir. And tying this to lobby groups, as in Deputy Ward's question, where misinformation isn't about interpretation, but is actually just about incorrect facts and the portrayal of incorrect facts as real facts, something which lobby groups sometimes do or have been seen to do, at least in other jurisdictions. Is that something that the scrutiny would seek to call out, to highlight the fact that some groups try to masquerade facts, non-facts as facts?
Yes, we would consider what are the facts, and this is why I'm saying that scrutiny look into this, and scrutiny might not have the same knowledge as the government official who put it forward, and this is why it's important that all submission published, and our officers are looking through them, and it's important to emphasize the submissions that contradict existing facts in the public domains would be considered in different way, and the submitter would be questioned about the facts, but it's really important to emphasize the separation between facts and different views of the submitter.
Deputy Scott, then final supplementary. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Just to clarify, given that there can be submissions that contain misinformation, whether or not that's the result of the use of AI or not, Can the President simply confirm whether the reports produced by scrutiny panels, that, bearing in mind that the submissions have been made public, whether the reports themselves will identify whether submissions contain misinformation or not?
The report before will be published, checked by us and also checked by the government. And if before the report published, it's coming back to the scrutiny with government notes. And this is another option for the government to ensure that if we can miss some misinformation, this should be raised with us.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Sir, maybe my question wasn't understood. I don't believe that it's government's responsibility in terms of the submissions. I'm asking whether scrutiny itself, in publishing reports, will identify submissions that contain misinformation so that that can be published in the reports to inform the public better.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the scrutiny. Once we receive submission, looking through them, and our officers looking through them and making sure that we do have correct information. It's completely scrutiny role to ensure that the submission that we received is submission that expresses views of specific people and not the bots, if we're talking about AI, and this factual information is correct. I'm not putting responsibility on the government. What I'm trying to say, what I said, scrutiny do utmost to ensure that misinformation is not published. And if we miss something, there is another stop before the report published, which calls fact check. And this is normal engagement process between scrutiny and the executive.
Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek.
No, thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 11. The Deputy Moore will ask of the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what plans, if any, he has to amend the formula of government funding for fee-paying schools that was introduced with the adoption of P.5/2017? And will he confirm that pupils at fee-paying schools are currently funded at the level of 22% and 47% of the average cost of pupils in primary and secondary non-paying schools, respectively?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. P41 to 2017 did indeed set the percentage of the ALPU at 22 and 47%. I have no intention of changing those percentages of the ALPU to the fee-paying schools. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, sir. When the fee-paying schools are on the new school funding formula, can the Minister inform the Assembly how the funding for pupils with a record of need and those with SEN but without a record of need will be funded at the fee-paying schools? Will they be funded 100% or at 22 and 47% respectively?
Thank you, sir. If and when the fee-paying schools move on to the the funding formula, records of need as they are now are fully funded for the fee-paying schools and non-fee-paying schools. The percentages quoted cannot be defined yet because we are comparing two very different things with the ALPU and the funding formula. It's like, sir, comparing Branston pickle with jam. They do two very different jobs. And so, therefore, the percentages on those would have to be discussed and part of the ongoing process of how that will work best for everyone involved. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. If the minister intends to maintain current funding model as he indicated for the fee-paying school, will he consider granting these schools greater autonomy in finance management to reflect the reduced level of state support and ensure that they are better equipped to meet the specific needs of their pupil?
Thank you, sir. I think the fee-paying schools already have a great level of autonomy in funding. I think there will be a move to move into the funding formula, but that is an ongoing discussion that has to get be got right. It would also require legislation, sir, and that legislative process will take time. I don't think we'll be ready for that before we have to end legislation in this Assembly, but I think all of the groundwork and how the funding formula will look for fee-paying schools, what the levels will be, and the type of impact that will have on their funding can be done over the next 6 months, 8 months to a year, and be ready to go after that. But that's a really important decision to be made for those schools and for the education department, and how effectively that works for everybody involved.
Thank you for the message. There is autonomy and there is no autonomy. If we compare fee-paying schools, states fee-paying schools, compared to grant-receiving schools, grant-receiving schools, they get a grant and they do whatever they want, including raising fees. Fee-paying schools restricted by several things, like, for example, raising fees by the department, or introduce different types of funding mechanism into fee-paying schools. This is why I'm asking if the minister would consider to give more autonomy for fee-paying schools that might suggest different models, can save public money and maintain their delivery.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think what the deputy has raised is the complexity of the way that we fund our fee-paying schools. Absolutely right. A grant and the funding for other fee-paying schools are very different. That is an issue that does need to be looked at well into the future. I mean, there are lots of models, and we have to be careful what we wish for. The deputy will know that in 2020. There was a independent schools funding review that actually recognised a change in the relationship between the government Jersey and fee-paying schools, including offering greater autonomy and potentially means testing support for fees, rather than offering subsidised fee-paying education as a universal benefit. That is a big discussion for us to have on this island. So we have to enter in any discussions over changes to the way in which fee-paying schools are funded with open eyes and looking at all of the consequences. The last thing we want to do is make those legislative changes in the last minute just before an election where, dare I say, we might not be making the more sensible decisions we may do if there is a longer term. So I think we have to be very careful. But those discussions are ongoing, the implications of those are ongoing. And I think one of the things we should have done when we introduced the funding formula, and we've learned from that, we've learned a great deal from the previous work, is to perhaps have a phase where it sort of overlaps so that schools know where they are. And just one more thing, sir, as the deputy knows, the problem we got with schools is they go from September to September, but our funding goes from January to January. I would actually like to see a 3-year funding model for schools, because I think it will help them enormously. But how we do that, I'm not entirely sure at the moment, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Reniff.
Thank you, sir. At least one fee-paying school has questioned whether the formula is being followed. Does he acknowledge that there is dispute or some room for argument about the details of the funding formula, and could that be improved?
Thank you, sir. Yes, there's always room for dispute. One of the schools has questioned that. There is ongoing work with that. We are going to look more closely at that particular school and work with them over the coming weeks and look in depth as to where they're in the situation they're in. But I do believe that the all-pew is being met. Money is given to schools, they know how much money they have, and they have to decide on spending that money. It's difficult for all schools. There are challenges across the board, we know that. But that is one of the responsibilities for the head teacher and the management team, and for the Board of Governors, who should be holding the head teacher account for their spend. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So thank the Minister for his answer. He says that discussions are ongoing with that particular school, which sounds positive. Does he think, though, that the funding formula could be formally and officially and publicly clarified in ways that would provide more certainty to all schools in that category?
So I think what we have is a slightly catch-22 situation with the funding formula, because it is clear. It's 22 and 47% of what the all-pew was at that set time, as that's increased over time. What's happened is that the non-fee paying schools have moved to a funding formula which targets money where there's more need. I think putting all of our schools onto that funding formula is a good step forward. But again, as I've mentioned before, we have to look at the genuine implications of that. That takes account of low prior attainment, the requirement for special needs, records of need, English as a second language, pupil premium, and a myriad of other features that may affect the funding levels for schools in terms of their intake. So we have to look very, very carefully at the impact of those formula on schools as we go forward. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister advise whether he's aware of the impact of the current cost of living crisis on parents' ability to keep their children in these schools, and whether any funding formulas might need to reflect that?
Yes, thank you, sir. Yes, the cost of living crisis affects those parents, but affects all parents in our schools because it's affected everybody on the island. It affected different sections of our population that perhaps haven't been affected before. Yes, there is a challenge for parents who pay for fee-paying schools. There are choices across all of our schools as to where young people go to. I want to see a model where every single one of our schools is a genuine option for every single parent because they are of high quality and provide the type of education that everybody wants.
Supplemental, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. And following on from that, is the Minister analysing the current birth rates and the fact that actually there are going to be probably less children to attend schools across the board, and what the model might look like, and whether we would still have private schools and state schools? Like what might that look like in future years?
Thank you, sir. I genuinely thank the Deputy for this question because it's exactly the work that we're doing. I'm currently producing a document which looks exactly at that, and I'm thinking about the best way to present it, whether as a report to the Assembly and take questions, which I'm very happy to do, because I want it to be a genuine open discussion about the future. Demographics will have challenges across our schools, but those challenges could be opportunities for the way in which we model our schools, to open our schools up, to have more collective work across our schools, and more collaboration across our schools, to give the very best education for everybody. So I was at the Education World Forum a week or so ago, and these challenges are not just for Jersey, but there are solutions out there, and it's through those open discussions that we've been having with head teachers and meeting head teachers to talk about demographics. They have their eyes open, and I think we have a positive future on that if we get it right, but we have to think long term, sir.
Deputy Tallier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister confirm whether or not this kind of funding formula applies to building maintenance for those schools which are fee-paying but which receive money from government for the maintenance of their buildings?
Thank you, sir. Yes, the ALPU, the percentage given to schools is to basically run the school, and that's the funding you've got. It's complex because of the relationship with the JPA, not JPH. JPA is the police authority, sorry about that, sir. JPH, which takes care of many buildings, and it is complex. So yes, the funding does include that, but there are also subtleties to that as well. I agree with the Deputy that these can be problems, but they can be problems across our estate, particularly as an estate ages. We've got that particular problem with our primary schools in the centre of St Helier. A new build will solve that problem, save a huge amount of money, and have purpose-built schools for all of our children in the centre of St Helier.
And is the Minister concerned, or would he give consideration to whether or not fee-paying schools should actually own their own buildings, and that government shouldn't be subsidising the buildings of fee-paying schools, and certainly that this money, which should be destined towards pupils, isn't going towards subsidising buildings?
Thank you, sir. That's a very good question. I think the answer for me would be one has to be careful what you wish for. Buildings do become places that really do take enormous amounts of money as we go forward. Owning the buildings may be counterintuitive for a school. I think what we need to do is to look at the structure of our school system, certainly starting from post-16 and then work our way down our school structures to see how they can best work together and see whether, because we are the size of a reasonable size authority, no more than that. So it's certainly not unachievable. I don't know the answer about whether they should own their own buildings to be responsible, or whether that would put schools in the worst position that they're in now. So we have to be careful with that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for the letter which has just been published to the CEHA panel, which outlines all the funding to every school at the moment. Will the Minister advise whether he will consider providing SEN funding above that for record of needs support to the fee-paying schools?
Thank you, sir. So the SEM funding is part of the ALPU, and when a school raises its money, accordingly, it is expected to fund in that way. RONs are fully funded, records of need, up to the full amount of a record of need. I think the difference in funding is not huge if we were to say we'll give additional funding, but then that would move the money above the percentage of the ALPU that's given to the school. So there is a challenge there. I want to see all schools accept children according to their need and not refuse children because of their special educational needs. And so therefore, of course, we would discuss the best way forward for that for all of our schools. Fee paying or non-fee paying, and that is one of the biggest challenges we've got into the future, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. So would the Minister consider that not supporting the SEN needs of children in the fee-paying schools in the similar way to other schools is working against those children's needs?
Thank you, sir. I simply don't accept that we don't support the needs of children, SEN children in those schools. Those schools do raise funding. It's very clear that they have a percentage of their funding that comes from fees. Fee increases have been above inflation. Additional money, for example, was given last year because of the high wage increase, so there was additional money given to cover some of those areas. I think the choice is how in which the school is going to spend that money, how it's going to address those needs, and we can look, but I do want to open the discussion about what is the changing needs within those schools so that we can address those views. And the move to the funding formula will be an interesting move as to how that changes, and that is one of the features that we have to look at in the move to the funding formula, which may well be beneficial in those terms, because it has been beneficial certainly for the non-fee paying schools in recognition of need. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm that real-term funding will cover 22 and 47% of the average cost of pupil at other Government of Jersey schools?
Thank you, sir. So it will cover the ALPU. Because we don't have the ALPU in other schools now, it will cover the ALPU as set when that change was made and followed on. So the answer is yes in those terms.
Well, we come to question 12. The Deputy Doublé will ask the Minister for Sustainable and Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise how, if at all, the Government is working with Blue Islands to help resolve any disruptions faced in recent weeks by islanders and visitors due to cancelled flights and other disruptions?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I and my colleagues, other ministers, appreciate the difficulties that islanders have experienced over the past few weeks as a result of rescheduled and sometimes cancelled Blue Island services. But it's important to recognise that these are operational matters for the airline itself. I, myself and my fellow ministers continue to strongly emphasise to Blue Islands that it must work to mitigate the recent disruption that impacts customers. And I understand that Blue Islands are working to resolve the technical issues that are affecting its fleet, and there have been additional challenges within the aviation supply chain that have exacerbated these. Ports of Jersey are also working closely with the operator to support these processes. The government and myself will always advocate for islanders, reinforcing to industry the importance of good practice and public engagement. But at an operational and commercial level, it is properly a matter for the operator and its relevant industry partners to deal with these matters.
Supplemental question, Deputy Doublé.
I thank the Minister for his answer, and I understand the answer. My supplementary is based around our legislation, and because the EU legislation in regards to reimbursement and compensation does not apply. Passengers are facing huge costs in terms of hotels and rerouting travel expenses. What does the Minister plan to do to ensure that customers who face these costs, islanders and visitors, that they are reimbursed along the similar levels that they would be were they travelling within the EU?
I think it is important, as we know, Jersey has never been a part of the European Union, and so those directives don't apply to travel that includes Jersey necessarily. It is a matter that the government is happy to look at, but there are no plans at the moment to include such compensation schemes.
Deputy Tallier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister confirm whether or not Blue Islands receives any government subsidy, and if so, how much that is?
I would have to get specifics on that. If there is any government subsidy, I believe it would be for something like the flights to Paris, particular route-based subsidies. I don't believe there are any overall subsidies to the airline. I think the only one might be for Paris.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Thank you. As a follow-up, sir, will the Minister seek to publish at least which routes operating to and from Jersey are subsidised, preferably how much they're subsidised by, so that we can have a discussion publicly about the unintended consequences of certain routes potentially not receiving subsidies whilst other routes, therefore operators, may do?
I'm, of course, happy to publish the details about which routes are subsidised. I would suggest that any conversation that does ensue needs to be highly technically based, and engaging in that conversation would need and be predicated on people understanding how the economics of airways work. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, I think the Minister, I'm right in saying that the Minister in the past has said that he didn't support a compensation scheme such as operates elsewhere because it would affect financial viability of the airline. And it seems, given the problems that they're facing, that he's probably right. Does he think that we simply should accept that as a subscale airline, it will not be able to meet the standards that bigger airlines provide? Or does he have a belief that they should actually meet those standards?
I think, and this actually speaks to my answer to the previous question about having better understandings of the economics of airlines and the way they work. And I think the Deputy is absolutely right to point to small airlines versus large airlines and the different economic pressures they face. There's a reality that, for instance, inter-island and short routes from Jersey are unlikely to be served by large airlines. Therefore, the finances of smaller airlines are likely to be more vulnerable. It's one reason why you might seek to find airlines that have certain scale. In the past, we've had Flybe was a regional carrier that had greater scale, but obviously certainly met its own problems as well. So if I did say I was against, I'd be surprised if I said I was against compensation. I think what I said in the past was that we have to be careful when talking about compensation, because it is possible that such obligations would mean that airlines just put out of routes and say, no, we're not going to run these routes because of those difficulties. And that is what I mean by all these discussions need to be predicated on us having an awareness and understanding of the way airlines work financially.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, I thank the Minister for the answer. It is of course, a complex question. I wonder if the Minister would consider the question as to whether the expansion of the route network might have limitations, might cause problems in terms of extending the airline into areas which aren't core to the island, to the island's transport offer, if you like. I accept that there's a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of thing here, but does he think there's a limit to how much Blue Islands could extend those route networks at the very least?
I think that's an astute observation. It's something that I am often concerned about. with regard specifically to Blue Islands and whether it at times may overextend itself, because obviously it has a fleet, I believe, of 5 aircraft. One of those tends to be in reserve, and so it's flying a fleet of 4 aircraft, which is not many. At the moment, my understanding is that 2 aircraft have been out of action, which is what has put pressure on these services. I think it's important to add that my understanding is, and this is information that comes directly from the airline, I believe 4% of flights on that, I think it's the Southampton route, have been cancelled due to technical issues. Where there has been other cancellations, it's been due to weather and matters outside the airline's own control. And so it is also important to put these things into perspective. If that number is correct, 4%, it does suggest that the scale of the disruption is smaller, but obviously it is the case, it's smaller than people seem to suggest. It is the case that one cancelled flight can generate lots of attention, whereas a flight which travels on time will generate 0 attention. That is not me minimising it, it is me trying to say that the figures that I've seen suggest that just 4% of flights have been cancelled due to matters other than those outside his control.
Well, I have Deputies Gardner, Ozef and Ward, then the final supplementary. No other questions. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And so I have a bit deja vu because my oral questions from 11th of June 24, we're talking about a year ago, was specifically about introduction of this compensation scheme, as our islanders are discriminated against the UK and EU residents. Then time, Minister mentioned 13.4% of passengers are affected. We don't know the numbers. We need to look into the numbers. It was a year ago. Has the minister looked into all numbers? How many passengers were affected by cancellation, not due to the weather, due to the technical operation from the Blue Island during the year?
Well, as I just mentioned, there's a 4% number, which comes from the airline itself. We haven't done a formal review of that. Those cancellations hasn't taken place.
I think it's just cancellation delays. If it's only Southampton, or other, are looking at what was at least published by Ports of Jersey, and I was followed last week. It was a bit, feels more than 4%, but I would like to get full numbers. Again, would the minister do any work considering how we can protect islanders who experience, saying, high cost for the delays and for cancellations, and they will not be reimbursed by anyone?
Well, I think, again, I've explained already the pros and cons. So I think it's something that the State Assembly, we are often faced with the idea that we should provide schemes for X or Y. That's fine, but they come at a cost, and there are implications. So if we want compensation schemes, they will come at a cost, and there will be implications. And those implications may mean that airlines choose not to run routes at all. That's something that the State Assembly should be aware of. That is a reality of the situation. Compensation schemes can be brought in, but the impacts of them may be adverse and may actually be detrimental to the island as a whole. I think it is important to reiterate, we live on an island. If we want to leave the island, we have to travel on either a ferry or a plane. It is always advisable to have travel insurance with you for the potential that there are cancellations or rescheduling, and also for your own health protection as well when you're abroad. And so I do advise that islanders, whether they're travelling on flights that have compensation or don't have compensation, I would always advise travellers to take travel insurance.
Deputy Ozef.
So, the Minister, I'm just trying to raise the thing right up to its highest level in terms of why we are, this question's being asked and what the Minister thinks. Milton Friedman says nothing is so permanent as a temporary government programme, which was the original plan to put subsidy into Blue Islands. The Minister has been asked by members during the course of question time whether he will publish all the subsidies that are given. I would ask him whether or not he would be of the view that has been taken over many years that Jersey is better placed by private airlines serving Jersey without government subsidy if we compare ourselves to other islands. Would you not agree and continue the approach whereby the private sector operating private routes without subsidy works better? Government should do fewer things, not do them. Government should do fewer things, not do them better.
If I understand that, I mean, my general stance on things is that you do not, in general, want government running any commercial operations. That's a general rule. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that is how I would suggest life in this island is better served. And certainly when it comes to something as technical as running an airline, I would strongly suggest that government should not be involved in running airlines. I think that is better served by those who are able to specialise in that. There's a reality, and we've seen this in the neighbouring island, where when you do own an airline and run an airline, losses have to be covered by the government. They are therefore variable losses that will have variable impacts on the public purse. I'm not convinced that Jersey would want to see variable amounts of money each year being ploughed into an airline. But maybe it does. At the end of the day, if it comes to the matter of protecting subscale, non-commercial routes, then it's almost certain that government subsidies would be needed to do that. But so far, we have been served on a commercial basis by Blue Islands and previous to that other airlines that have served routes such as the Southampton routes and inter-island routes on a commercial basis and have done so successfully. I shall seek stronger resilience in this area, and maybe if it's possible to have an airline operating with many more than 4 or 5 planes, that would be helpful. But at the moment, we have Blue Islands who do their best, and I know they always do their best, to provide services to passengers and to make sure that lifeline services are affected. I do have assurance from Blue Islands themselves with regard to the Health Minister's earlier answers that Blue Islands does seek and does understand the importance of that Southampton route and does seek to make sure that its timetable protects that Southampton route as much as possible.
Supplemental question, Deputy Joseph.
I don't think there's anything I can really ask apart from welcome the Minister. I'm just trying to work out how I can reconcile what he's just said with the Economic Development Department providing subsidies for new routes, but I'll leave that there, sir.
So if I could just clarify again, we do not subsidise en masse, to the best of my knowledge, Blue Islands routes.
Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. Are there any service level agreements associated with loans on subsidies?
That's a very general question that I couldn't answer. The deputy didn't even say loans and subsidies to who or what.
Sorry, Blue Islands, as the subject is. Okay.
I'm prepared to accept that the question is loans. Is there any loans and service level agreements associated with loans and subsidies to Blue Island?
To be honest, I don't know, and certainly with the loan, it was done by a previous government. And it's the Treasury Minister's responsibility, so I have no idea.
Supplemental question, Deputy Wall. Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. I understand the Minister's quoting the 4% for cancelled flights, but is the Minister aware of the multiple delayed flights, especially over the past week, some delayed for up to 30 hours, and no staff at any of the airports and no support with ongoing transport, which left some passengers stranded in the middle of the night at Jersey Airport with no taxis available. And he mentioned the insurance companies. Is the Minister aware that actually Jersey insurance companies are not paying out for these costs because they're saying that they're covered by the EU law? Would he look into that, please? And also, would he take note of the results of the Jersey Consumer Council investigation and survey, because they are looking into this? And could he ensure that if this airline is at risk of collapse, that that government steps in to prevent this?
I am concerned about the Deputy's tone when she talks about airlines being at risk of collapse. That's something that the Deputy, I believe, has created herself. I don't know that this airline is
I
at
think that's
risk of
impugning
collapse.
improper motives.
Well, I think what you...
No impugning.
I don't think that that you were suggesting that the Deputy was creating an imminence of collapse, were you? seeking clarification from you, I think.
No, I'm not suggesting. I'm just suggesting that I don't know where this risk of collapse has come from.
Well, I think, Minister, it's still for you to answer the question that's been posed to the extent that it dealt with other matters as well. It was a fairly large supplemental question.
I noticed that, sir, and my memory isn't that large, sir. Certainly with regard to matters such as insurance companies not paying out because they say things are covered by the EU laws, then I would suggest that that is something that should be taken up with the appropriate ombudsman. I believe in this case that's the Channel Islands Financial Services Ombudsman, and that would be absolutely the appropriate place for people to direct their complaints around that. So if the deputy is receiving complaints around insurance, then I would ask that she directs those constituents to the Channel Islands Financial Services Ombudsman. So.
Well, we don't have question 13 because that was one of Deputy Wilson's questions. We come to question 14. The Deputy Reniff will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the Minister's comments at the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel's public hearing on the 20th of May 2025 regarding appointments to senior roles in health, will he explain how he intends to change the appointment process and state what advice he has sought on this matter?
Sir, strictly speaking, I'm unable to answer this question as worded because at no point have I ever suggested that I intended to change the appointments process. From that, it follows that I wouldn't have taken advice from anyone on the subject. I think I'd probably be quite within my rights to end the response there, sir, but I like to be helpful, so I obtained a transcript of the public hearing on the 20th of May, and I simply stated that I'd like to see one or more HCJ Advisory Board non-executive directors sitting on the Jersey Appointments Commission panel for the recruitment of all senior HCJ appointments. I think I would refer the Deputy to a point of clarification that I made, and here I quote, "I can't interfere with the Appointments Commission, but what I can do is make recommendations." Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Reniff?
Yes, sir. The Minister said, I'm keen that all further senior appointments with health contain one or more than one of our advisory board NEDs. And then he clarified that he wanted a minimum of two when I asked adding them to the Jersey Appointments Commission for those jobs. So that was adding them to the Jersey Appointments for the Commission for those jobs, which is why I asked the question. Given that the Jersey Appointments Commission is constituted by the employment of States of Jersey Employees Law, and all appointments to the Commission are subject to confirmation by the States Employment Board and indeed the Assembly, can the Minister explain whether he actually intends to appoint people to advise the board, as he said in that thing, and if so, whether they in that answer, and if so, whether he would go through this process of appointing them that is mandated in law?
Sir, I'm not aware that I'm in a position to appoint anybody to the Appointments Commission. I did say at that meeting that I would take this forward. I've done exactly that. I've met with the chair of the Appointments Commission. I've explained that I think it would be beneficial to have two of our NEDs sitting on future appointments for senior executives. I haven't had the confirmation in writing, but it seems to me that that suggestion would be doable under the existing laws, and that the chair would be quite happy to accept that for certainly for a limited period. There's quite a lot of change going on at health at the moment, and I think that he'd be agreeable to that, certainly for a limited period. So, thank you.
Deputy Joseph.
So, just so that the public can understand what we're talking about, can I ask the Minister to clarify very clearly, is he getting involved himself with the appointment of individuals to the board or not? Or is it the Commission that is doing it on his behalf?
I'll re-quote my words, sir. I can't interfere with the Appointments Commission. I don't think I can be any plainer than that. I'm entitled to speak to the chair of the Appointments Commission. The chair of the Appointments Commission is entitled to speak to me and listen to what I have to say by way of suggestion. he then interprets that in accordance with the regulations which cover him, and he seems minded to accept the suggestion because it fits within the regulations for a limited period, sir. I hope that's reasonably clear, sir.
Supplemental question.
I think it's very clear. I'm just trying to understand why we're taking up time on discussing something which is clear. The Minister said, I'm not involved, but I'll talk to people in the process.
There is no...
By thanking the Deputy.
I'm sorry, I don't think that was a question, Deputy Joseph.
It wasn't. It was a
Well, yes, but unfortunately standing orders don't provide for venting frustration. Deputy Gardner.
Just to my clarification, and it's very simple, follow the Minister's response. So, what discussions the Minister had with the Jersey Appointment Commissioner, and if I understood correct, Jersey Appointment Commissioner confirmed, or not, didn't confirm that they would welcome 2 NEDs to the recruitment process. Is it correct, if my understanding is?
For limited senior health executives for a limited period of time.
And it was the confirmation from the appointment commissioner that content with this process?
Yes, sir.
Jean.
Thank you, sir. And I wasn't in the scrutiny panel hearing, so I was just wondering if the Minister could explain why he thinks it's important that he would suggest that he would like NEDs for a short period of time. What's the benefit that he sees in this? Why is he suggesting this?
I've got a transcript of what I said, and I explained that we're very fortunate to have some extremely experienced non-executive directors on our advisory board. I trust their judgment very much. They've been extremely helpful to me. And I thought it was sensible because they sort of, I think it's very important when you're making significant change in any area that you have the right people in the room. And I think these people have got a particular ability in selecting the right people. It's pretty straightforward stuff, so thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, I just wondering if this is a standard practice within the government in general, and if he thinks that this would be useful for other ministers to suggest in the future for other areas of government.
I think that's far too general and out with the general. I mean, what this minister may think about what should be applied across the board in government is really nothing to do with his express ministerial responsibility at all.
Okay, could I have the first section, which has it been done before in this role with health?
Has it been done within your ministry? Yes, I'd accept that as a supplementary question.
I have no idea, sir. Sorry.
Well, Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister explain why it would be limited, both in scope and in time period, please?
The scope, the Appointments Commission probably only gets involved in relatively senior appointments in any event. And I think as regards the time period that the Chair was keen not for this to set long-term precedents. I think he was mindful of the fact that there's quite a lot of change happening at the moment and was sympathetic to that and thought that for the time being that was appropriate, but didn't want to have that cast in tablets of stone. And I thought that was a very sensible approach. So,
Supplemental, Deputy?
I wonder if, given that it would still set some kind of precedent going forward and not just for the Health Department, I wonder if I could request, would the Minister be willing to take that point away and maybe use the conversations he's been having to kind of feedback that it might be helpful to have some very clear set guidelines about why it's limited and the time period so that we don't end up with just a very murky area, I suppose, that does set potential precedents for all sorts of things in the future.
So I don't think there's anything murky about it at all. There are very clear guidelines as to what can and can't be done. I think that there must be an element of discretion for the Chair, and that was the discretion that he exercised, and it all does fit within, he checked and it fitted within the regulations that govern his conduct, sir.
Very well. I have Deputy Miles and Tadier, then final supplementary. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. I was always under the impression that the whole purpose of having an independent... is the Minister concerned at all that his proposal risk undermining that principle?
Not at all, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister be nominating the NEDs that he'd like to see as part of the appointment process?
No, sir.
Very well. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you. So, it follows on from Deputy Miles' question, really. When the Minister said that when he spoke to the Appointments Commission, I believe he said that he wasn't interfering, but that he was seeking to influence. Can he clarify what the difference is between those two, and in fact, whether seeking to influence is actually a form of interference?
I've made it quite clear that I don't consider that a form of interference at all, sir. I don't think there's much else I can say. It seems quite remarkable that when one's doing something in the interests of making sure that people get a really good health service, that it becomes deemed to be tantamount to a crime. I'm quite amazed, but of course we live in a democracy and people are entitled to make whatever comments they want. But I would remind people that my courses of action generally are aimed at trying to make sure that people here and their families get an improved health service, and I'd like them to bear that in mind when they're asking future questions, sir.
Deputy Tadier, do you have a supplemental question?
Yeah, nobody's accusing the Minister of a crime, but I also think we can't simply accept that the ends justify the means, which sounds like what he's saying. The simple question is, if a board is supposed to be independent, should they not be arriving at their own decisions and conclusions without the need for a minister to intervene and say what he or she thinks? And if he, in this case, is doing that, does that not overstep the mark?
So I'm very sympathetic, more sympathetic now than I was with Deputy O's comments. I'll state again, I state quite clearly, I can't interfere with the Appointments Commission, and I can't. The chair was at liberty to tell me to get lost when I spoke to him. He's governed by a set of rules, and he's applying those rules. If anybody here thinks he's not applying those rules, then they should perhaps take him to task, sir. But I think he's certainly, from what I can see, he's behaving in an orderly manner, and I believe that I am too, sir. And I make no apology for it. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. This isn't a disagreement about making a better health service. We all want a better health service. It's a disagreement about the role, if there is a disagreement, about the role of the Minister in influencing appointments. The clear point here is that the Appointments Commission is set up to be independent of politicians, but the Minister has held meetings with them to try and change the normal process. Can he please publish and describe in more detail what it is that he intends to do and which appointments this will cover, so that we can see the scope and the process that is going to be followed, so that we can understand whether the fears that might arise from changing the appointments process are justified or not.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. I'd like you to request that question be disallowed. I've not at any point in time attempted to change the process. I've been accused of that in the question. I believe I was at liberty to sit down at the end of the initial response, because I clarified that at no point had I commented that I intended to change the process. I'm being accused of that again, and I'm afraid I'm going to refuse to answer that question, sir, because that's not what I've said at any point in time, and we've had no evidence to that end, sir.
Is the answer not that you're refusing to answer the question, Minister, but that your answer is the same?
It's exactly the same as my very first answer, where I clarified that I've never stated that was my intention, sir.
So am I allowed to ask a point of order or clarification?
Well, you can certainly always ask a point of order, not a clarification.
The question was because the process has been changed in respect of the addition of 2 people to be added to a normal appointment panel. Does that therefore not qualify as a justified and legitimate question to ask the Minister?
Well, I'm afraid now you would have to repeat to me the question in the form that you would like to have asked it with that background so that I can make a ruling on it.
Sir, as a point of clarification...
No, I will hear from the Deputy first.
Sorry.
So the question was about whether the Minister would publish more details about the scope of the change that he is proposing to the appointments process and the time-limited nature of it so that we could understand whether it is indeed a significant change or not. The point being that it is a change in process, unlike the Minister's claim that it is not a change in process.
Well, on the basis that there are 2 premises, I suppose, within that question, that it is, but that it is different now than it was then, is probably the essence of the question. And will you provide published details as to the way in which it's different now than it was then? Is that a fair characterisation without using tendentious words relating to change of process?
For the umpteenth time, sir, I'll repeat, I don't intend to publish anything at all. I'm not going to be drawn into this nonsense, sir. It's time-wasting nonsense. Nothing has changed. The Appointments Commission operates as it does. We're not putting any additional people in there. I think before the Deputy asked the question, he'd have done well to read the terms and conditions of the Appointments Commission, because clearly he doesn't understand them, and it would have saved people a lot of time. The Appointments Commission will know that there are... The chair can select a number of different people, and if he chooses to add 2 NEDs to the panel as part of the panel that would have been in place, that is a matter for him. He will be operating within the regulations, and so I think the Deputy would have done well to do his homework before he's wasted everybody's time. Thank you.
Very well. The final question is question 15. The Deputy Gardener will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy. Deputy Gardner.
Yeah, thank you. Further to adoption of the 3rd Amendment to the Common Strategic Policy 2024-2026, will the Chief Minister advise what steps, if any, the government has taken and is taking in 2025 to ensure sustainability of our health provision and to protect the island's economic prosperity in light of projected demographic changes?
Thank you, sir. The Council of Ministers took these issues into consideration during the development of the Common Strategic Policy, and the Ageing Well Roadmap was published at the end of 2024 as part of the annual Common Population Policy Report. This sets out a range of short, medium and long-term actions and show how ministers are working together to make sure that the older population in Jersey have access to the services and opportunities they need now, sir, and long into the future. Health is, of course, a key issue in relation to projected demographic issues, sir. Of course, we're about to start building the new hospital, and the Health Minister is refocusing on the whole service and how it interacts with the wider health community and community in Jersey into the future. So these proposals include a move to more investment in preventative healthcare and tech-based solutions. A new dementia strategy has already been published. These and other issues, sir, have been raised in the Future Economy programme, which includes measures to improve economic growth, productivity and right-sizing the public sector. In terms of lifelong learning, sir, the 2025 budget has provided for enhanced grants for distance learning to help older people to reskill and balance retraining with other family responsibilities, sir. Also, we have the International Competitive Review being led by Deputy Gorst, investing in Jersey plans, which members will learn about very shortly. That specifically covers, amongst other things, the provision of much needed affordable family homes. The work on curbing the growth in the public service, and that work will materialise in this next budget and future budgets and the forthcoming population policy report. Of course, can I remind members that the first of our States Members workshops last month was an opportunity to discuss the long-term challenges in detail and question expert officers alongside the changing world order, sir, and the ageing demographic, the major overarching theme that guides our approach and to prioritisation on a whole range of tactical and longer-term decision-making, sir, which I hope the whole Assembly will continue to be involved in. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Yes, I'm grateful for Chief Minister giving us insight into general government work. It's helpful. Would the Chief Minister give an example, specific new policies or actions, because it was that has been introduced in 24 and Plan 25 as a direct response for future demographic projections? Chief Minister mentioned aging population. I would add also low birth rate as well. We have both coming at the same time. I would be grateful for 3, 4, 5 specific policies that has been introduced, actions have been taken.
Thank you, sir. I believe I did give a number of examples in my previous answer, sir. But short-term actions include data and planning, improving data collection, especially in relation to the older population to inform future service planning, awareness and inclusion, so promoting age-friendly practices and reduce ageism. Health access, begin enhancing access to primary care and preventative services for the community. Financial security, so review pension adequacy and employment support for the community, so the older sectors of the community. Will that do, sir? You could keep going.
But it's not for me to say if that would do, but I'm sure there'll be a final supplementary at some point. Chief Minister, Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister confirm clearly that in addressing demographic pressures on our health system, his government will not resort to introducing new charges for core health services that are currently free at the point of use?
I think that's probably ultimately a matter for the Assembly, sir. And I haven't discussed this in detail with the Health Minister. He's mentioned that that could be an option. I'm not sure it's an option that we can discuss without the full details of what's proposed. I'm very much of the belief that our key services should be funded from general taxation, so which is why work on right-sizing and reprioritising expenditure is important, sir, but that's whatever happens in relation to taxes and charges will ultimately be a matter for this Assembly.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, please. Will the Chief Minister rule out any increase in general personal taxation as a means of funding demographic-related health and economic measures during the current strategic policy period?
Well, there are certainly no plans to increase personal taxation at the moment, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Southern.
Does the Chief Minister's use of the words right-sizing, to what extent do they involve privatisation of services which are currently public?
Right now, so I'm not aware of any plans to privatise any existing services. So.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Has the Chief Minister had any discussions with his ministers on the subject of privatisation of our health services currently given free at source?
No, sir, I don't believe we have.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Is the Chief Minister supportive of the proportion of spending on digital in the Health Department that the Health Minister is planning? Does he think that that's reasonable?
There's still a lot of detail to be agreed, but I certainly agree with the Health Minister that to improve our health service, we need to embrace tech-based solutions. And we are way behind in our digital offering for islanders when it comes to health service. So I'm fully supportive of the proposals to develop that aspect. In relation to the costs, sir, well, I think if we manage to do this effectively and proportionately, the original investment, that's what I call it, will pay back many times over, sir, especially that will help us to embrace more preventative types of approach, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Is the Chief Minister maintaining oversight of that project to ensure that it does produce value for money?
Well, sir, that is the remit of the Health Minister at this stage, but of course it will ultimately come to Council Ministers, Treasury and to the budget for approval by the Assembly, sir. What I will say is that I'm pleased of the collaboration around the Council of Ministers tables. Generally speaking, sir, we are working together on almost every a single project, which has, I think, been important to the progress we've been making. I hope that continues long into the future.
Deputy Osif. Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Sure. Would the Chief Minister advise what metrics or indicators his government is using to track the success of actions and policies introduced to manage demographic challenges in the future?
I think all members received a copy of the presentation slides, which came before the States Members' Workshop on the Jersey's long-term challenges, which presented a lot of, which laid out a lot of these facts and figures. But I'll come back with a written response to the specific question about the types of matrix and indices we're using. Thank you.
Very well, that ends questions with notice. We come now to questions without notice. The first period is for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. On the 29th of May, the Public Health Department published the Jersey alcohol profile for 2024, and it showed that Jersey residents consume more alcohol per capita than the UK, placing us among higher consuming countries. That alcohol benefit claims cost the taxpayer in Jersey over 600k in 2024, with rising long-term incapacity allowance payments indicating pressure on health and social services. On the following day, the restrictions around price and availability of alcohol in Jersey were relaxed to allow, amongst other things, happy hours and 2-for-1 promotions. Will the Minister explain why he has allowed the hospitality industry to control the narrative around alcohol and public health?
Thank you, sir. I don't mean to sound dismissive, but I haven't. Would be the right answer.
I thank the Minister for that uninformed answer. Could the Minister please tell us what interaction he had with the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs about how this change will impact policing of the nighttime economy?
This was not a decision that I made. I did not personally speak to the Minister of Justice and Home Affairs.
Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. Given his responsibility of economic policy and oversight of emerging and regulated sectors, will the Minister advise whether he supports the introduction of a formal revolving door policy in Jersey to ensure appropriate safeguards and transparency when senior civil servants or officials involved in sector policy or regulation move into roles within those same industries?
Minister.
I think Jersey is in a difficult position. People need to work to live in Jersey, and if somebody has left working for the civil service, they do need to be able to work elsewhere. So I would be guarded in having any formal rules. I think it is a very different situation compared to large countries where there are millions of people to choose from. I think in Jersey, we do need to try to retain talented people in both the public and the private sectors. And that does mean that you're going to have people moving between the public and private sectors, as indeed I have, as indeed I believe the Deputy has in the past as well, not necessarily within Jersey, but you just move between the two. Whether there should be tighter controls, I'm not sure I'm in that world at the moment, given that I feel that Jersey overall, economically, has tightened things to the point where it's very difficult to freely operate a business these days.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and thank the Minister for his answer. And of course, I was specifically asking about when civil servants or officers who are involved in a specific sector policy regulation move to those specific roles within the industry. And so I'd like to ask if the Minister is aware that both the former Chief Pharmacist and the Group Director of the Economy, two of the most senior officials involved in designing Jersey's medical cannabis policy, have since moved into roles within the same industry. And does this raise concerns for the Minister about regulatory capture or conflicts of interest? And does he believe stronger revolving door safeguards should be in place to protect the integrity of government policy making, giving this specific example?
I don't know very much about the chief pharmacist, but I do know with regard to the former employee in the Department for the Economy, that employee was effectively made redundant, and so the decision to leave was not effectively that employee's. That employee then needs to earn a living, and they have expertise, so it makes sense that one of the areas that they find work in is an area in which they have expertise. That's the way it works. That's the way we all work. I know that there are planning officers who leave the planning department and go and work for consultancies on planning matters. That's because they have expertise in planning. If we're expecting someone to leave the planning department and go and work in retail, it's going to be a very big ask, because their expertise throughout all of their life has been in planning, so they're going to stay in that area. So I think it's one of these things that it's very easy to be idealistic and to say that people shouldn't go from this job into that sort of job. But there's a reality. We're an island of 100,000 people. We've got very few professionally qualified people in certain areas. And if they no longer work in government, they need to work somewhere else. And we shouldn't have to ask them to leave the island in order to stay within their profession. They should be able to find work within their profession in Jersey.
Deputy Joseph.
I would like to ask the Minister whether what his position is on the staying of overnight French visitors with a French ID card. Is he entirely satisfied that he's done everything around the Council Minister's table to ensure that he can see a further growth in sales of our valued hotel accommodation by French ID card holders being able to stay overnight?
What I wish and what may be the best route for the island may be two different things. I think it's important that we handle the French ID card matter carefully. And quite simply, the reason is this. The United Kingdom, whether rightly or wrongly, is very, very sensitive to matters of immigration. I would suggest more so than we are in Jersey at the moment. And therefore, anything that the United Kingdom government sees as a potential weak link in their border situation is something that is going to attract attention from the United Kingdom government. At the moment, the situation we have with 1 day in Jersey using a French ID card is something which we have shown over the last 3 years works very, very well. Now, I think it is most important that we solidify that day-long commitment before we start pushing further. As much as beneficial it may be to the island, the thing I would fear the most is that by pushing further, we actually end up with the United Kingdom cracking down on the 1 day that we have already. And that is something I would not wish to see.
Supplemental, deputies?
We will come to the debate later, but can I just ask the Minister whether he has had a briefing on the cans and can't do's for Jersey in relation to this matter? And yes or no, and the underlying thing is does he understand that the Republic of Ireland has French ID cards as part of the CTA without any controls whatsoever?
So, quite simply, Jersey can do pretty much what it wants in regard to accepting people into this island. Jersey can, that is correct. From my perspective, I would love to have that control entirely for Jersey and exercise it. We have that control legally, but there is a practical reality. And that practical reality is we sit within the common travel area. Now, I envy the Republic of Ireland's situation. I question why Jersey lost the situation that we had previously. And somewhere like the Republic of Ireland has got something that we used to have. But we need to tread carefully. We need to do these things diplomatically and preferably not in open parliament.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, building on Deputy Jean's comments, the Minister directed his comments at the question of employment, and of course former employees of government do need employment, but in the UK there is a requirement for a 2-year break between leaving the government and lobbying government. in that same sector. And of course, that is only for senior employees, so it wouldn't apply to people like planners. But in this case, we're talking about senior officers in his department who are involved in shaping policy and regulation and have relationships with existing ministers and officers. Does he not think that a 2-year lobbying rule in Jersey would make sense?
Actually, thinking further about this, sir, I believe, and I can only take this employees at face value, they have been working pro bono. They have, to my understanding, not been working for any wage in this area. So I think it is very, very difficult to legislate or regulate for these sorts of matters. I think people have also been referring to another role, chief pharmacist, has never been in my department, and I don't know anything about the chief pharmacist, previous or current in that respect, sir. But I think we just have to be very careful. We're an island of 100,000 people. We keep saying that we want people to remain in the island, that we don't want to keep having to attract new and new people. We want people to develop their skills in Jersey. That means we have to allow them to be able to move between firms and between the government and firms. So all I say is I think people need to think carefully that this is not a matter for just jumping on the bandwagon and doing what the UK does because the UK does it. This is something that we need to think about within the context of an island of 100,000 people.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, sir. It is also possible to argue that precisely because we're an island of 100,000 people and where networks and so on can influence things behind the scenes, that transparency is important, and a rule around a break between people having a senior role in government and then taking on a lobbying role in that same area, whether they're paid or not, would alleviate concerns that there is influence behind the scenes, unseen influence, giving unfair advantages. Does the Minister not accept, if I can push him, that some kind of rule limiting lobbying, just lobbying, would make sense?
I think the road to a certain place is paved with good intentions, and I think this Assembly is often makes mistakes on the altar of good intentions, and I fear that this may be another one.
Deputy Taddy.
Thanks, sir. The question relates to the forthcoming inshore safety legislation that's on the table on the Minister. Couldn't the Minister explain whether he believes that the law should include prevention of what is effectively drink driving at sea, and if not, why not?
So I think I've said before that in this case, I believe, particularly if you look within the context of the number of incidents at sea, I believe that a step-by-step approach has been the best approach, and that is the approach we are taking through this law.
Supplemental.
Will the Minister clarify that under his proposals, it will be fine to drink as much alcohol as somebody wants to, get behind the wheel of a vessel, and that in itself won't be an offence legally? Is that the position that the Minister is comfortable with, given the fact that we've raised this with him on a number of occasions?
It is the case that the proposed law does not create an offence of being drunk in charge of a vessel in that sense. What it does create is an offence whereby if harm is committed to personal property, that prosecution for being inebriated can take place. At the moment, that isn't the case, and so we are making it an offence, whereas previously there was no offence.
So can I ask a point of order? The Minister's not answered the question. I asked whether he's comfortable with that. I didn't ask him to restate to me what the law says. I know what it says.
I think that is
Sir,
fair.
I can help you. My comfort is neither here nor there, sir.
Very well. Deputy Aye.
So sorry, here's a point of order. Does the same standing order that applies to written questions apply to oral questions, sir, about the fact that an answer must address the question?
Yes, and the way in which that question was addressed was the Minister's expression of the view that his comfort or otherwise simply wasn't relevant. It's a legitimate way of addressing the question, and the consequences of that are not, for me, they are of a political nature. Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. In regard to Boxing Day opening of retail premises, I asked a question of the Minister on the 21st of January when he responded, that's absolutely something that I would be pleased to consider. Has the Minister now had time to consider this matter, and will he be bringing forward a change in the law to allow retail outlets to all open this Boxing Day? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I regret to say we haven't taken that further at the moment for no other reason than general workloads. I will revert on that to the Deputy and see if we can make progress this year.
Supplemental to that? Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Cost of living is number one concern for islanders. Would the Minister, in his role as the chair of the Cost of Living Ministerial Group, will share with the Assembly group work?
Yes.
Would the Minister share with the Assembly what's the working plan for the group and what's the outcome of the work that we can see in public?
Sorry, you mean now as opposed to that we meant in the future? Sorry, the future. So, the Cost of Living Group does meet regularly, and we have, of course, an interesting agenda. And we are also, for the next meeting, inviting the Economic and International Affairs panel members to attend some of the aspects of our meeting should they wish to. Those would include an update on the Better Business Support Package and how that is helping businesses, grocery price monitoring, and the inflation outlook and future forecasting. On top of that, work that we have done include, obviously, the government has direction to keep fee increases low. As an example, within the economy department, this has involved, this has involved freezing fees associated with the fishing industry. A new and improved Jersey Consumer Council price comparison website has been launched, or is being launched. Monitoring of local grocery prices is to be considered at the next meeting, as I discussed, and as I said, we're inviting the scrutiny panel along to that should they wish to attend. We're working to develop a minimum income standard. That's something which would...
I'm afraid the time limit has expired. I'm afraid the time's up, Minister, for questions to you. Very well, we now come to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. What progress is being made with the introduction of a police complaints commission?
Sir, I am not aware in relation to any progress that's being made in relation to the Police Commission.
Supplemental.
Thank you. So I presume that it is no longer a matter on the Minister's work programme. So in light of no change there for the police complaints process, has the Minister considered introducing time limits for dealing with complaints? And does she accept that failing to deal with complaints within a time frame impacts upon trust in government?
I thank the Deputy for the question, and in relation to the police complaints, obviously the legislation is still not completed and it should be imminent. Unfortunately, it has not. I 110% agree with the Deputy in relation to the expeditious dealing of complaints in relation to complaints made against the police. Unfortunately, there will be times whereby there will be delay in relation to sub judice. However, having worked in that department and been subject myself to complaints, I realise and fully appreciate the impact on both the person complained about and the families, and also those victims of those complaints.
Deputy Joseph.
In the response to Deputy Balash's and my amendment in French ID cards, the Minister quotes that there is increased cost going to be arising. Has the Minister received an officer advice about the cost of that additional administration? If so, how much is it?
Sorry, sir. Can he just clarify that he said the additional cost for the implementation of the 3-day Thank you. Sir, I think it's more than the cost of resources in relation to what the Deputy has asked for the 3-day extension. It is quite clear that with correspondence from the Home Office, this is not a project that they particularly endorse. We have been exceptionally successful in administering the 1-day element. This heightens the risk of us in relation to the CTA and also potentially us being given a hard border, which would have a serious impact on other islanders who wish to travel to the UK.
Supplemental question.
I'm sorry, sir, but is the Minister really telling me that allowing a scheme that is permitted in Ireland with no controls is risking the UK putting a passports approach border on our relations to the UK? Is that really what we're being told?
Sir, my responsibility as the Justice and Home Affairs Minister is safety of all islanders. That means that we need to ensure that our borders are safe. We will be, like all other jurisdictions, getting the ETA at the latter part of this year and early next. From my perspective, sir, I have worked with Deputy Balash in relation to Customs and Immigration and also other Council of Ministers. And it is my view, as the Justice and Home Affairs Minister, that this is the best option for Jersey at this time and not to risk being possibly, sir, a way to get in through Jersey because our borders are deemed not to be safe. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. The regulations regarding the promotion of alcohol were relaxed last week to include the provision of lower pricing. In the JEP, it was reported that the Attorney-General said his department had sought the views of the States of Jersey Police, but that no response had been received in spite of a chaser note being sent. He went on to say that the inference is that if the police were really worried, they would have said something. Is the Minister content with this approach, and would she like to say something about this removal of restrictions and the impact it might have on policing the nighttime economy?
Sir, firstly, I would like to clarify a point. The Attorney-General has confirmed that SOJP were not consulted, nor did they receive a chaser as referenced in the Assembly meeting. The Chief has met with the AG, who has apologised for the administrative oversight. They look forward to working together in collaboration to monitor this over the summer period. It will not be a surprise to the Deputy that I was not, sir, aware either until I saw it in the news. I am not in favour of drinks promotion, either on or off licensed premises. It is also going to be something that will need to be monitored both by police and their response and their resources to the matter, and also the ambulance service, which this could also impact. In relation to, of course, the licensing law, sir, the responsibility firmly sits with the licensee. And so, therefore, any matters which are deemed to be inappropriate, and I would remind members that the law is quite clear that it is an offence to be drunk on licensed premises. Should there be any problems over the summer months, these matters will be dealt with by the States of Jersey Police, and those matters under Article 9 references will be referred back to the Licensing Assembly. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you. Thanks to the Minister for that very comprehensive answer. I appreciate it. My supplementary really is, will the Minister undertake to ensure that the States of Jersey Police put robust systems in place to monitor the impact of the relaxation on policing of the nighttime economy so that an adequate comparison can be made with the before situation and the after?
Absolutely, sir. Obviously, at this stage, we are not able to state whether this will or won't impact resources within the States of Jersey Police, but also, of course, the ambulance service, which we have in recent months have concerns in relation to violence and aggression. So, as I said, we will work with what we currently have, and we will show the data that is necessary to be able to reflect it by the end of the summer.
Deputy Reniff.
Thank you, sir. At the meeting of the Health Scrutiny Panel a couple of weeks ago, the Health Minister talked about the risks that had arisen because of the medicinal cannabis trade and the potential that that had caused for mental health issues and so on. Does the Minister support the idea, the principle of further regulation of medicinal cannabis from a Home Affairs Minister's point of view?
Sir, I absolutely do. I was not supportive of decriminalising cannabis. I think that legislation should be tight, and I believe that that needs to change, because we now have a situation where medicinal cannabis is being provided, and I would assume, or would surmise, sir, that it may not be being used by those that are always getting it, sir.
Supplemental question, David.
Yes, sir. So that's two senior ministers in the government who think that something should be done. Is the minister aware that anything will be done between now and the next election by this government?
Sir, I'm not, it's not obviously on my schedule in relation to legislative changes, but I'm happy to speak to the ministers in relation to those relevant departments to ensure the position coming to the end of the this term of office.
Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise the number of prisoners in Lemoy with drug-related convictions, and has this in any way led to drug taking within the prison? Thanks very much.
Sir, there are currently 65 prisoners in relation to drug offences, which will obviously be under different legislations and different parts. In relation to the drug taking in prison, there's nothing that's been sort of highlighted to me of concern. However, I would assume that this is something that is always potentially to be there, but I can certainly update the Deputy whether that is, if there's any sort of data in relation to that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not something that's been raised as a concern at this time.
Supplemental.
Thank you, sir. 65 convicted felons in a drug importation, presumably. How many of those are could be transferred to other prisons in their own country? Is there any way that we could reduce our costs by transferring them back to the place that they came from? Thank you, sir.
Sir, in relation to the breakdown of the actual offences, there is 5 which is down to other. Importation is 40 and supply is 20, which makes up the 65 in total. So prior to COVID, we had a sort of reasonable transfer of prisoners to the UK. Since COVID, that number has reduced because obviously they couldn't go during COVID. But as the Assembly will be aware, there is a significant issue in UK prisons in relation to overcrowding. In the recent months, the Crown dependencies, including obviously ourselves, have negotiated and had further conversations with the UK in relation to transfer of prisoners. And we usually have roughly 20, sir, that are asking to be transferred back to the UK or transferred to the UK. And there are others that will go to other jurisdictions as long as we are satisfied that those jurisdictions are able and capable of taking them under the remit to which they are convicted. We have since, in the last couple of months, last 3 or 4 months, been able to secure 1 transfer per month, roughly. This is not ideal from the perspective of the prison numbers, and it's not ideal for prisoners either, which means that they can't necessarily go back closer to home. So we are, sir, doing them or transferring them as quickly as we possibly can, but obviously the numbers will never be reduced to nil, because as we have one transferred, there's likely to be more that wish to go.
Deputy Pore.
Thank you, sir. Further to the recent announcement made by the UK Prime Minister with plans to ban recruitment of care workers from overseas and to tighten access to skilled workers visa, has the Home Affairs Minister considered what impact this decision will have on recruitment in Jersey?
Sir, thank you. I thank the Deputy for the question. In relation to immigration, we do link in with the UK. However, we have our own work permit policies, and therefore we will work within our own work permit policies. We have a broad remit of people who can come to the island on work permits, and we do align to a lot of the skills that the UK policies are. But we will continue to work within our own boundaries and what is necessary for our island, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Pore.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I thank the Minister for her answer. But I'm going to ask you specifically in terms of Jersey. Does the Minister have those? The Minister has admitted to have those concerns. How does she intend to prepare for when that happens in the island? No.
So I'm a little confused because, as I explained to the Deputy, even though we are aligned to the UK in relation to immigration policy, we do have our own work permit policy. So we do have people come to Jersey under work permits. As an example, from my recollection, we bring in work permit holders for the industry of agriculture, whereas in the UK I don't believe they do. So we do have our own policies in relation to work permits.
Deputy Balash, possibly there's a chance of a question.
So following up the questions from Deputy Ossoff, may I ask the Minister whether there has been an explicit threat from the Home Office to introduce a hard border if Deputy Ossoff's proposed extension by 48 hours were to be introduced?
I'm not quite sure what the Deputy would mean by threat, sir. I can't imagine for 1 minute that the UK government would threaten another jurisdiction, particularly a Crown dependency, sir.
Well, that brings the time available for these questions to this Minister to end. The next question period is for the Chief Minister. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. In light of Jersey's commitment to integrity and good governance, can the Chief Minister confirm whether he has been assured that the cannabis licensing framework had been formally approved through the proper ministerial processes prior to licences being granted in 2020?
Chief Minister.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, sir, and I can't remember the detail back that far, but to the best of my knowledge, correct due process was followed, sir. But I'm happy to double check, but I have no reason to believe it wasn't. Thank you.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, sir, thank you, and I thank the Chief Minister for his answer and for possibly checking of this, because is the Chief Minister aware that internal documents published under FOI show that the Chief Pharmacist and 2 other senior officials advised against referring the cannabis regulatory framework to the Council of Ministers and instead recommended it to be enacted via a ministerial order to avoid council scrutiny and public debate, potentially. Does the Chief Minister believe that this was an appropriate approach, given the complexity and public health implications involved? And with hindsight, would he recommend the same approach now?
I think, sir, the process for ministers to decide well known, sir, but I'd have to look at the detail. I would think in that instance, or current policies, ministers are well advised to bring key decisions to council of ministers for support, although they remain within their right to make decisions. So I can't remember the detail of the time, sir, but I will check. Hope that's helpful. Thanks.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. At the recent Chamber lunch, the Chief Minister of Guernsey said that Guernsey was cultivating a relationship with Nigel Farage and that the Reform UK leader could be of value to the Channel Islands. Is that a position that Jersey's Chief Minister agrees with? And what kind of relationship does he and his government currently have with Mr Farage and hope to have in the future?
I think, sir, the Chief Minister of Guernsey was alluding to a private personal conversation he'd had with Mr Farage in relation to a potential application to move there, sir. And in Jersey, we wouldn't comment on personal applications from a political perspective. Nigel Farage, sir, is the leader of the Reform UK party, and we would hope to have a good relationships with all UK political parties, and I know the External Relations Minister leads on that work, sir. So we would that would be no difference with the Reform Party or any other party. So in relation to, I won't get into the detail of whether we agree with policies or not, sir, but our policy is to work closely with all UK political parties.
Supplemental question, Deputy Stevens.
Yes, sir, thank you. Has the Chief Minister or any of his ministers met with Mr Farage in any official capacity since taking office?
I don't believe so, sir. No, thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
So the government has multiple infrastructure programmes, which I believe are covered under the overall heading of investment in Jersey. I think they include things like what was known as Project Breakwater, but also existing infrastructure projects. Can you provide clarification on what these work streams are and what state they're at?
So I refer to the Deputy to my many previous answers to the same, if not similar questions, and look forward to sharing the detail of what was known as Project Breakwater, the Island Regeneration Programme and long-term capital planning, as soon as the Council of Ministers has agreed the details, sir. And then I look forward to giving members and scrutiny a very detailed presentation for their views, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, sir. Does that mean that, can you confirm that actually none of these programmes have come to the Council of Ministers for formal agreement, and can he say when they might?
All of the threads and aspects, every single part of what is proposed has been to the Council of Ministers on a number of occasions and dealt with in a number of ministerial workshops. I'm hoping we're very much in a position to have the paper formally presented to the next Council of Ministers on the 10th of June, sir, for formal approval. Thank you.
Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. And staying on the topic, in oral question 110/2025, the Treasury Minister confirmed that states members would be briefed on the Island Regeneration Plan in June. Can the Minister confirm whether this briefing and publication will happen between said 10th of June and the end of June?
Well, I'm mindful, sir, I've already missed at least one deadline by promising a date. We very much hope to present to members in June, sir, and we're working towards that as a Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister advise whether any bodies outside of government that aren't ALOs or SOEs have been briefed or provided information on this package?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. Once Council of Ministers have approved it, then I will instruct officials to discuss with all relevant discuss the detail with all relevant stakeholders.
Deputy Joseph.
Would the Chief Minister update the Assembly on discussions concerning the fuel farm, having attempted on numerous occasions to ask him publicly and the Infrastructure Minister? I have no information, cancelled meetings. Can he please tell me and the public when they're going to know what the rationale of the government's decisions are?
The Minister had a briefing at a meeting that Infrastructure Minister I attended with officials, I think 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, at Union House, the boardroom on the, I wish perhaps you could instruct the deputy to stop interrupting, so it's a little bit off-putting.
I think shaking of heads is one thing, but repetition of disagreement during the course of the answer is probably not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank
Please
you very
carry
much,
on,
sir.
Chief.
Thank you. The deputy is aware of the proposal to extend the fuel farm lease, sir. I spoke to the deputy earlier in the members' room, sir. I need to speak to the Minister for Infrastructure. We propose to invite the deputy to present his concerns to the Council of Ministers at the next meeting, sir. But the position remains unchanged. Council of Ministers have made a decision in relation to the direction in which they want to go, sir. But we are prepared, as we would be with any member, to listen to the detail of any concerns.
Supplemental question.
So would the Chief Minister agree that concerns can only be expressed when information is received? And can he confirm that after asking him, I don't know how many times, sir, publicly and privately, and his Infrastructure Minister and other ministerial colleagues have given me not a single piece of information on which to base any conclusions on behalf of the public who I represent, who are concerned about fuel prices. Could you just confirm that he has given not one piece of information at a meeting or anything else, by email or anything, in order to be able to raise concerns?
I understand, sir, that the deputy, at his own admission, sir, is very well versed in all of this, having worked on it for a long time, sir. There is a certain amount of information that must remain commercially sensitive into the detail, but I'm happy to share with the deputy the information relating to the extension of the lease and the terms within. So we'll share that information with him prior to the meeting.
The question, of course, was, have you done so up to now?
So can I raise a point of order? Can I raise a point of order? Because we've got this ping-pong going all the time. And I just want your guidance, sir. I ask things in this place because on an undertaking that the Minister will do what they do. I've asked this numerous times. I'm given some foggy answer and I don't know what to do. I just want the information on which the public has told, the Minister has said, I'm going to get it. And I just am in this ping-pong, sir. Can you give me some guidance about what to do? I can't keep on like this.
Well, the short answer is I was about to suggest to the Chief Minister that your question hadn't been answered because you had asked whether he had provided you directly with any information, and the Minister talked about what might be generally available in the public domain. So that was the first point. The second point is, if a Minister, the Chief Minister or any other Minister, or indeed any other member says within the Assembly, they are, in response to a query or question, going to do a thing, then the Assembly is entitled to expect that they will do it. And they will do it within a reasonable period or explain why not. However, the consequences of not doing it are political. They are not, or via complaint in the normal way in accordance with the state's complaint procedures. I can't really say any further than that, Deputy, because...
I'm grateful for your ruling. At least it's been said. I'm grateful for your ruling, sir, because I don't know where the backbencher does go when he just simply ends up getting fobbed off all the time. But thank you for your ruling, sir.
Are you able to provide the final answer?
Yes, sir. Far from fobbing the deputy off, sir, we know his persistence in politics, and we have made every effort to talk to him, to provide the information he requires to explain our position, to explain the rationale behind the decision of the Council of Ministers. And as I've just said a couple of minutes ago, sir, we will provide the deputy with the information prior to his coming to the Council of Ministers next week, sir. So I make that undertaking again, sir. We will provide relevant information for the deputy. I don't believe I've broken any promises or flip-flopped or whatever the adjectives were used to describe our behaviour, sir. And we look forward to welcoming the Deputy Council of Ministers meeting next week where we can hear the full detail of his concerns.
I should explain that the clock's stopped, therefore members can't look at the wall for guidance as to how much is left. My note of when we started, plus 15 minutes, takes us to 12:17, and I'm allowing an extra minute for the rulings that have been required of me. So we will stop at 12:18 by my clock, which is not necessarily precisely the same as the clock there. Very well. Deputy Tadier.
Thanks, sir. So we've heard from various members, including ministers, that there are differing views around alcohol policy. So things like minimum pricing of alcohol, promotions of drinks. Does the minister accept that all of these things are ultimately policy considerations which should be therefore set by politicians following debate? But this doesn't currently happen in Jersey's system.
I think so. That is part of the rationale of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development in revising and refreshing the law, so to look at a different way of doing it. We've seen, I believe, an imbalance into late 1980s in relation to drinks promotions or competitiveness in the sector, so where we allowed the retail, the off-license trade, to work with, to discount with impunity until recently to a par with minimum unit prices of alcohol, while imposing completely different restrictions on the on-trade. Of course, there is an important aspect of the health, the impact on health of excessive consumption of alcohol, sir. But I believe and I have confidence that the laws and the licensing laws will, working with the police and the licensing assembly, will do their part to monitor the situation very closely and not tolerate improper use of licenses, sir. So I think a new law will put more emphasis on political involvement in policy making. But of course, if you go back long enough, that was taken out of the political sphere for a reason, sir. And I think, largely speaking, the licensing assembly has dealt with it well in recent decades, sir. But a full review is under process with new legislation.
Very much so. So, supplemental, Deputy Teddy.
Thanks, sir. I mean, my question really is the fact that these kind of policy decisions are not made by politicians, and I don't think the new law will change that. They're made by the licensing bench and the Attorney General, who, with due respect, isn't an elected politician. Does the Minister agree that at some point, and could he perhaps make a commitment under his leadership, that these fundamental questions about minimum pricing of alcohol, about drinks promotions, will come to the Assembly for debate, so a clearer policy can be established that can then inform decisions that are being made by those bodies?
Thank you, sir. First of all, we have to remember that the decision to grant the authority to make decisions to the Licence Assembly was a political decision made by this Assembly, sir. So this Assembly passed that authority on to the Licence Assembly, and they've been discharging that duty since then. The second part of the question, should there be more political... Well, of course, sir, overall policy, I think, in relation to that, needs to be ultimately political, which, I think it will have to be when we discharge the Licensing Assembly of that duty. That will have to be a state's decision, and I'm looking to the Economic Development Minister for a nod of the head that the revised licensing law will be brought to the Assembly soon, which deals with the questions that Deputy Tadier have asked, sir.
Deputy Porritt.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister inform the Assembly what impact, if any, the recently updated UK immigration law will have in Jersey immigration figures? Thank you, sir.
I'm afraid I can't answer off the top of my head, but I will find out and write to the Deputy.
I'm afraid that brings us to the end of time available for questions to the Chief Minister. And there is nothing under J and K, so we move now to public business. The first item of public business is amendment to standing orders, deadline for challenging written responses, P5, lodged by the Privileges and Procedures Committee. And I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to make the following amendment to the standing orders of the states of Jersey with immediate effect.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. PPC is proposing a simple amendment to standing orders that makes a change to the deadline for challenging answers to written questions. This follows an issue that was raised to us by Deputy Moore. Under Standing Order 12, responses to written questions must be directly relevant to the question asked. The standing order sets out a process whereby a member can challenge the response received on the grounds of direct relevance. The member is obliged to refer the matter to the bailiff. The bailiff makes a ruling. If the ruling is that a new response is required, the member answering is required to provide a new one. This process is subject to a set time frame. The deadline for challenging is 12:45 p.m. on the first meeting day for which the order paper lists the question. To give an example, the order paper for this meeting listed all the written questions submitted over the last 4 weeks and for which an answer has been given. The deadline for challenging any of those responses, regardless of when you submitted the question, is 12:45 p.m. today. The list on the order paper includes the written questions submitted last week, but for which responses were only provided yesterday. They appear on the consolidated order paper. How much time a member has to challenge depends on when they submitted their question in relation to the meeting. For those questions submitted last week, members had less than 24 hours to challenge the responses they received. This seems a short time frame for members to meet. This amendment to standing orders would change that. For questions submitted the week before a states meeting, the deadline for challenging would be extended to the following states meeting. If this rule had been in place now, it would have meant that the deadline for challenging the responses that were received yesterday would have been 12:45 p.m. on the 24th of June, the next states meeting, rather than 12:45 today. This amendment would mean no member would, in future, have less than 24 hours to challenge a response they had received. I believe this proposition is straightforward and in the members' interest, and I make the proposition and ask members to support it. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Can I tell was the proposition seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I just speak to support this. I think it's good to give time. It is we're all very challenged. I would like to raise one point that I've noticed. All questions are due at midday on a Thursday. We sometimes not received that oral question formally till after 6 o'clock on the Thursday, which means that, you know, we want to do everything, I want to do everything I can to give full answers to oral questions and be prepared, because I think that's what we owe to the Assembly. But if my ministerial is set on a Friday morning, which it is, it gives us very little time to do that. So I think we do also ask PPC to try and extend. I realise the challenges everybody has and the workload that everyone has, but we all have that as well. So sometimes perhaps when there's criticism, or critique is perhaps the best word, of answers being given, there also needs to be time to work on those. Not just for myself. For myself, we all know in this Assembly that it's not a 9-to-5 job and we have weekends as well, but staff that work with us and for us are entitled to have their weekends and time as well in the evenings, and I think we need to be cognizant of that in terms of questions. So I just raised that small point, but yes, I fully support this. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to thank the Privileges and Procedures Committee for bringing this amendment and for taking the time to consider this request. As contrary perhaps to popular belief, and as I'm sure the Privileges and Procedures Committee have recognised, our work is varied and covers many long hours and is generally unsupported in basic administration areas, and therefore this extra time limit will be very helpful in the following up of questions. If we take today's list of written answers, there are, I think, 64 pages to get through, and or despite my best efforts this morning, I have not yet been able to do so. So I thank the committee and hope that members will support their amendment.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Just quickly, I want to say that the Council of Ministers welcome the proposed amendments brought by the Privileges and Procedures Committee, while the Council of Ministers always seeks to ensure that their individual responses to questions from members are in order when they are first tabled. It is recognised that there are occasions when the questioner is of a view that a response requires a challenger. Sometimes that position is upheld by yourself, with checks and balances being an important part of the democratic process. Members should be afforded sufficient time to consider the content of a response and constructively challenge when they feel appropriate. So, notwithstanding, we take on board the comments of Deputy Rob Ward, sir, and basically the premise is the sooner that ministers can get the questions, the more time we have to provide a comprehensive answer. So the Council of Ministers support it, sir, and I would also recommend the states support the proposition. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Sutton.
Yes, sir, and I just want to brag for a minute. It's nice to see a piece of legislation that you've been responsible for developing and growing as it turns out to be more and more useful in terms of pinning ministers down to exactly what they mean when they produce an answer. So I wish it well.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? If no other member wishes to speak, then I close the debate and call upon the Chair of PPC to respond.
Thank you, sir. I thank Deputy Rob Ward. PPC will look at the timeframe for oral questions. I thank Deputy Moore for bringing this to our attention and thank the Deputy for her comments. And likewise, I thank the Chief Minister for his comments on behalf of the Council of Ministers and Deputy Southern for seeing that this is a very pragmatic approach. Thank you. So I make the proposition and call for the appel.
Vote is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. And I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 41 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions. Well, the next item of public business is the Draft Income Support Jersey Amendment Regulations P30, lodged by the Minister for Social Security. The main responder is the Chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Income Support Jersey Amendment Regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Articles 5 and 18 of the Income Support Jersey Law 2007.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm very pleased to be bringing these amendments to the Assembly today. These changes, if they are approved, will streamline access to two important benefits for people who are terminally ill. This will have the effect of reducing administration and speeding up access to support at a time when families most need government to act quickly. For those people affected, it will make it quicker to get the support they need when they have less than 12 months to live. The two benefits affected by these regulations are income support, specifically the medical component of this benefit, and the home carers allowance benefit. I will explain the impact on both benefits, but to clarify now, I will say that one of the conditions to receive home carers allowance is through medical assessment used in income support. This is why access to both benefits can be addressed by the regulations that I'm proposing. Income support has separate elements called components, which meet the different costs of households who apply for these benefits. One of these is called personal care. It is a medical component that is paid for a person who has extra needs because of a long-term illness or disability. Personal care is paid at 3 levels, with the highest level being worth an extra £198.03 a week.
It is awarded following a medical assessment that considers all of the person's needs and looks at evidence from any relevant medical professionals and from the person themselves. Terminally ill people can already get personal care level 3, but have to currently make an application, which I felt was too complicated given their circumstances. I should stress that we have always worked hard to ensure that terminally ill people on income support are assessed for personal care 3 and get support. But here we are talking about a situation where any delay could be upsetting and where the risk of simplifying the process is also very low. This is because evidence here is not ambiguous. People who are terminally ill will always be under the care of a medical specialist, whether here or as part of a treatment in the UK arranged by our health service. Terminally ill means a person who a medical professional expects might die within the next 12 months. In the UK, there are special procedures that let certain benefit applications be fast-tracked if the relevant clinician provides a simple, standard form of evidence that says they expect that this might be the case. These regulations are designed to achieve the same effect in Jersey. They will mean that a person who qualifies for income support could receive personal care level 3 very quickly if they were in this situation. We refer to a relevant clinician in the proposed regulation. This means a Jersey or UK medical practitioner or a nurse with a specialism in the terminal condition of the adult or child. The way that income support is set up would mean that personal care level 3 would also be available to children or young adults who live with their families, even if their families earn too much to qualify for income support. The other conditions of income support, such as the requirement for an adult member of the household to have lived in Jersey for at least 5 years, do still apply. For families who do get income support, personal care level 3 can also trigger the award of a carers component worth an extra £71.61 a week. Moving to home carers allowance, which is a separate benefit which comes from the Social Security Fund. Unlike income support, it doesn't have a means test, but to apply, the carer must have paid or have been credited with the relevant social security contributions, must be below state pension age, and must either give up or significantly reduce working hours to care full-time. It is worth £1,132.04 every 4 weeks and also covers the carer's contribution records. To get home carers allowance, the cared for person must meet the criteria for personal care level 3. That means that streamlining the assessment for personal care level 3 has the same effect for people applying for home carers allowance. It reduces the time taken to apply and the amount of administration involved. If it is not possible to directly estimate, the cost of this benefit, but the numbers are expected to be low. This is because many people in Jersey who are terminally ill are likely to be already getting benefits because they are sick or have a disability. Many will be getting long-term care. I can say that for every extra 10 people who claim through the new route, it will cost just under £100,000 for income support payments and just under £140,000 for home carers allowance from the Social Security Fund. Although I expect that members will require little persuasion to adopt this common sense change, I would like to clarify a few small matters. I know that in the national papers there is a lot of discussion about people who have been asked to repay UK carers benefits that were overpaid in error. I would like to reassure members that the system is very different in Jersey and these issues do not arise. I can also reassure members that the benefit paid under this new route does not stop if a person happens to live longer than 12 months. We have specifically designed our system to recognise that sometimes people will live longer. The second is just to remind members that this change is a small part of Jersey's overall system that supports islanders who are carers or have care needs or who are at the end of their lives. These regulations simply streamline access to parts of our system without taking anything away from our provision of long-term care or the support available from our healthcare system and, of course, Jersey's voluntary sector. I believe these changes will make a meaningful difference to islanders who find themselves in an incredibly difficult situation. Although the numbers of people who need access to these end-of-life benefits are likely to remain small, I know from my time as a backbencher that those families who are affected by this will really benefit from these changes. Thank you, sir. I maintain the principles.
Those in favour of adopting the principles kindly show. I beg your pardon? All of a sudden the world changed for me there a moment. I do apologise. Are the principles seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy Southern.
Yes, just to briefly welcome these changes. I think the streamlining of this particular benefit will prove invaluable to many. Many's the time I've sat down with what is actually quite a complex set of conditions, some of which are intermittent, some of which vary from week to week. It's a very difficult process applying through this. The streamlining for some patients, which is proposed here, is to be welcome, absolutely. Thank you.
Deputy Balash.
So the Minister has made a good case for this change, but her proposal seems to me to be lacking in detail about the financial implications, and that detail seems to me to be important. The report states, and I quote, "The cost of these proposals can be absorbed within the existing budgets of income support and social security fund expenditure." But earlier in the report, it is stated that, and again I quote, "an accurate assessment of claim volumes is not possible." So how does the Minister know that the cost can be absorbed? There were 877 deaths in Jersey in 2024, and many of those, it seems to me, will have involved a last illness or put the individual in a position to be assessed as having less than 12 months to live. The home carers allowance is not means tested. 877 times £14,717 equals £12,906,809. And of course, some of the potential claimants will be already receiving the allowance, but even so, the figures seem to me to be large enough to suggest that the statement that an accurate assessment of claim volumes is not possible is not really good enough. An estimate must be possible, and it seems to me, sir, that the states should be told. Recent accounts published show that the state's expenditure has been rising dramatically and exceeds our income. And every occasion upon which the Assembly is asked to justify the expenditure of more money from taxpayers' funds, it seems to me that a minister should be called upon to explain precisely why she thinks that the money should be spent.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? If no other member wishes to speak on the principles, then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Deputy Southern for his words. I know that he's worked very hard to try and simplify income support processes and access to benefits, and I value the work that he's done, and I hope to continue improving access to our benefits. I'm not sure how best to respond to Deputy Balash's comments. Of course, this change doesn't make more people eligible that aren't already eligible to benefits. This change is about ensuring that people that are going through one of the most difficult periods of their lives don't have to deal with unnecessary bureaucracy. And I hope that the Deputy can see the absolute value in that. The reason that the report suggests a possible additional expenditure is that it may well be that people found it too difficult previously to go through that bureaucratic process and didn't claim when they were eligible for it. And I've said in this assembly before, and I will maintain, that it is my view as Minister for Social Security that we should be ensuring that our benefits are there for people who are entitled to them, and that everybody that is entitled to such a benefit should have no barriers to claiming those. So with that said, I maintain the principles, sir, and call for the appel.
The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seat. The vote is on the principles of the Income Support Amendment regulations. I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The principles have been adopted, 42 votes for, no votes contra, 1 abstention.
The abstention, sir.
Deputy Balash abstained.
And does the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel wish to scrutinise this matter?
Deputy Dublé has been called away for an urgent personal matter, has asked me to respond. No, we do not wish to call this in.
Very much. Very well. It seems to be before we move on to discussing the rest, it is an appropriate moment to ask if members wish to continue until we conclude this item of legislation, or wish to adjourn in the normal way.
Sir, before we do adjourn, I've just rapidly remembered, can I remind all members that the wonder of the CPA AGM is immediately after the sitting. We are all members, we're all part of it. It'd be great for us to celebrate that membership, and there will be some presentations afterwards as well to show the work of the CPA. That's immediately after the end of today's sitting. Thank you, sir.
Well, the Assembly therefore stands adjourned until 2:15.